Hey, can everybody hear me?
I can hear
Yeah, I
you
can hear you.
perfectly, Dylan.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. So, I want to thank you all for coming back to the, I think the first Hippy Dippy Roundtable I've had in maybe like a month and a half. That's like a straight up just like political roundtable. So I want to thank you all for coming out as we tried to put this show together. And to everybody at home, I just want to say thank you for sticking with me. I know that the show's been on a hiatus due to some personal stuff I had to deal with. And stuff I'm dealing with currently, medically and emotionally. And I want to thank you all for your continued support for the channel and the show. It really means a lot to me. Now, I'm going to go through some of the basic rules quick before letting everybody do their introductions. The first rule is, of course, when I'm talking, no one else is talking. I am not coming in here to make a political position. I am simply trying to moderate this discussion. During the start of every round, there will be a short period of time where you can give your introduction and outro for a topic. Nobody can talk over you during that time. Nobody can speak during that period of time. So I would really like some silence from everybody else when that is going on. We don't have a lot of banned words, but some of them basically include anything that's TOS, any slurs, and we try to refrain from like going after other people's like personal like physical characteristics. Besides that, I think the only other banned word is bitch and cunt. Those words will not be used while we are doing this panel. The reason being, not because I want to regulate your speech, but every time when those words are used, what it does is derail the panel, and the discussion is no longer over the topic, but over the use of those words. Besides that, no arguing with other panelists in the Twitch chat. We would like to have that argument here. If you DM them, I won't see it, so if you want to get away with it, there's your secret tactic. Besides that, if you want any sources that I want to link in chat, send them my way. Is there any questions about the rules?
No, sir.
Wonderful. And the last thing I will introduce you all is to the notepad. If you have any troubles getting your way into the discussion, this has also always been a way for people to try their best to be included. You raise your hand, I'll write your name down, and I'll make sure it eventually gets over to you. But please know that when you do that, you're probably going to have to wait a while, because I want to make sure that the conversations that people are having end before we move over to you. Okay. So now we're going to go into introductions, try to make them short and sweet, describe who you are, where people can find you, and we're going to start over with Josie.
Hello, everybody. I'm Josie Rose Caballero. You can find me on Twitch at Josie Rose, the letter C, like it is on my screen there below me. And I am a 6-year veteran reactor operator for the United States Navy. I did that for 6 years, and then I did 10 years as a political person, as a campaign manager and consultant across the country for a decade. And now professionally, I am a researcher, trans researcher for the largest national trans organization in the country. So I'm happy to be here. I'm ready to have a great conversation today.
Happy to have you here. Now we're going to move over to Denims.
Hello, I'm Denims. I am a SOCDEM. I talk about politics and I stream. That's me.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move over to Hutch.
I would echo the same thing, actually. I'm the same as Denims.
Wonderful. Now we're going to move over to Xanderhall.
Yeah, I'm sort of advocating for SOCDEM policies, and I'm a leftist, but overall, I just am a progressive, and I talk about progressive issues, and that's basically all there is to know.
Okay. Now we're going to move over to Sprouticus.
I'm a constitutionalist conservative. You can find me at twitch.tv/thesprouticus or thesprouticus on Twitch. I mean, on Twitter. Either one. It doesn't matter.
Wonderful. Now we're moving over to American Nacho.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, all the stuff at American Nacho or some variation of that, with or without an underscore. I am center right. I still consider myself a progressive Republican, at least trying locally. Federally, I've fucking lost all hope, unfortunately. So on that level, I'm politically homeless at this point. But besides that, yeah. That's pretty much it. I game and I talk politics, and thanks again for having me on. Glad to be back.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Layman.
Hello, everyone. My name is Layman. I am also politically homeless. I am a grill-pilled anarcho-Canadian, Canuckian, authoritarian leafism with maple syrup characteristics. Here to imperialize the American panel tonight. I have a YouTube channel called Layman where I moderate debates, participate in them myself, and do the occasional video essay on top of that. And I am very, very happy to be invited back.
Happy to have you. Now we're throwing over to CounterPoints.
Yeah, super pumped to be back on the Hippy Dippy, one of the best shows on Twitch.tv, and probably one of the best shows in politics, especially politics on Twitch.tv. So my name is Connor. I identify as a centrist or center right. I am probably primarily right wing, like guns, immigration, some Jordan Peterson cultural takes, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, those are my politics. I do run a YouTube channel, which I am live streaming on for the first time ever. Right now, so we'll see how that goes. And basically, what I do is I review violent media. I'm a 4-year veteran of law enforcement. I'm a 4-year veteran of the Marine Corps, person other than Grunt deployed 0708. So we're reviewing Full Metal Jacket, one of the best war movies ever made. We're reviewing one of the best law enforcement movies ever made called End of Watch, and we're reviewing Warhammer 40,000 animation content because I'm a fucking dweeb. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I also talk politics, religion, spirituality, philosophy, all that kind of stuff. So if any of that interests you, I invite you to go into YouTube, type in common spelling CounterPoints. You should find me. We're on the verge of breaking 7,000. And then also just go onto Twitter and type in CounterPoints, ConorPoints, ConorPoints. Very, very, very happy to be back on the Hippy Dippy.
Happy to have you. Xander Hall seems to be having camera problems again. I'm gonna ask Dan about to move into another room with him and try to help him out with that, so we can hopefully have him in the show. Now, we're going to go around the room and say our introductions on the first topic, which has to be with the January 6th Commission vote. There was a vote on the January 6th Commission in the Senate, and it failed. There will not be a commission on January 6th as of right now that we know. And this was basically sunk by a speech by Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor where he waived his support against it, and then it went under. And so everybody's thoughts on this is what we're hoping to get out of it. We're going to start on the bottom left-hand corner with Hutch.
Yeah, so it seems pretty obvious on its face that this is a political strategy. It has nothing to do with the sort of excuses that McConnell gave. I think McConnell said that he didn't understand what sort of new information could come to light from this commission, which would have been an independent commission of 10 people, 5 picked by Democrats, 5 picked by Republicans. It was not going to be some partisan panel. And the reason why he said that he didn't favor that is that we already have investigations going on from the DOJ, and he felt like it was going to hamper their investigations or something like that. Well, if that was the case, then why did we have a 9/11 commission? Because they were investigating things back then as well. Republicans are aware that the January 6th events don't make the party look very great, and they're very acutely aware that they don't want to go into the midterms in 2022 defending the party against the attacks that would inevitably come from a commission like this. And it's pretty transparent. So I don't know if I have too much else to add to that on the intro.
Okay. I'm now going to throw it over to Denims.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good for Republicans to look into the January 6th insurrection. It's just not good for Republicans going into midterms, even a little bit. It's not surprising that like Republicans wouldn't be in favor of this, especially because a big part of their entire argument around it is that this wasn't an insurrection or that like this wasn't actually some big obstruction of justice or anything like that. So if they can get people to stop looking at that, that is the ideal. The more people that look at this, the worse off they are.
Wonderful. Now we're going to go over to Sprouticus.
January 6th, I do not support what happened. I condone what happened on January 6th. At the same time, this would have been a waste of money.
Wait. You said
You mean condemn?
You mean condemn,
right?
not condone.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean condemn.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I mean condemn. My bad. Really, really bad choicing of words there. Anyways, I condemn what happened on January 6th. I surely do not condone it. So With that being said, I think that the commission would have been a waste of time, a waste of money. The FBI is already investigating this. This would have just been a political witch hunt because the Democrats know that they're losing the House and the Senate in 2022. This was a last chance effort to have the Democrats try to focus on something else besides the disastrous presidency that Joe Biden's been having so far. So they're just trying to have they're trying to have you focus on something else besides that. So they chose the January 6th and trying to have a commission over it. Now they're just going to witch hunt against the Republicans that voted against the January 6th until 2022 midterms come to try and hope that they have voters.
Okay, we're gonna throw it over to American Nacho.
Yeah, I don't know why this failed. This among a few other key things is part of the reason why I'm pretty depressed and disappointed in like the Republican Party on a federal level right now. I don't think it's a witch hunt. I think they definitely should have done it. I think it only helps them look good faith. I think it would also help weed out some of those Republicans and probably get them primaried for those that we don't want to be in the running right now, which are those who are just ready to kiss the ring and bend the knee to Trump. I would rather see them go after those people. I would rather see those people get exposed, and I would rather see them get replaced so that people can take the Republican Party seriously moving forward. So really, and even if it was, whatever, I'll wait till open because I'm just going to respond to Sprout. So, but that's it. I think it was a mistake to shoot this down. I think it looks really shitty. So, and I think we should have done it.
Okay, now we're going to throw it over to CounterPoints.
Listen, we're all looking for the guy who did this, okay? And the reason why I fucking say that is because there's a pretty funny fucking sketch on YouTube right now. It's a guy in a hot dog costume. He drives a hot dog car into a fucking building, and then he acts like he doesn't know what the fuck everybody else is talking about. We already know what happened, okay? Fucking Republicans, basically, the Republicans who were friendly to Donald Trump's rhetoric, the Republicans who entertained the election fraud conspiracy theory, they had it bite them in the ass. I don't know if they thought that the population wasn't going to take them seriously when they said that the election was a fraud. I don't know if they didn't think that their own constituency wasn't going to take them seriously when they said Donald Trump was the last great hope for America, and what was going to happen was Hutch and Denims and Dylan Burns were going to basically like put estrogen in our fucking breakfast cereal. Basically that's like yeah like I know yeah, Josie, the only reason why I didn't throw you in there is because I don't know if you want to put estrogen in my breakfast cereal. So anyways, but the fucking point being that we all know what happened. Republicans fucking doubled down on shitty rhetoric. It bit them in the ass. It makes them look like shit. So the question is, would it be productive? I don't think it would be productive, and we can fight about that in the general. But again, it's like we all know what happened, which was MAGA made their bed and they had to fucking sleep in it. That's what happened. So I don't know what an investigation is going to uncover, except for maybe like Ted Cruz is fucking sexting fucking Rudy Giuliani about how excited they are about how badass the fucking riots are. That's the only thing that I think would come from the investigation. Besides that, I don't think anything else is coming of it. So it's yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll leave it for the general.
Okay, going to throw it over now to Layman.
Yeah, sure. I mean, being a Canadian, I guess I just kind of sit back and I act like I'm superior to everybody in America because of how much of a shit show that January 6th stuff is, and I shut the fuck up for most of my day. But as far as this commission thing goes, I actually think that how do I word this? So I think that if you are a conservative, something that you should be trying to instill in your party is sort of giving people faith in your civic institutions. And if you were to have this commission go and display some kind of like confidence in that, I think that that would have made, like, if you're so confident that your civic institutions are working correctly, I think having a commission go in and do that would have instilled that, in their worldview anyway, would have instilled that in their voting bloc, their populace, and all of this stuff. Maybe like it would have been good there, but I don't think it really would have changed anything. So I'm more or less on Connor's side when it comes to that. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. So I just echo what Connor said.
I don't really know if right now is the best time to be talking about Canadian pride in comparison to America with everything that's been in the news recently, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, there's still a lot of way worse shit that happens to indigenous people in the United States. So, and I think that the indigenous shit that happened here is fucking disgusting. And I absolutely condemn it, as pretty much everybody here has. So
Sounds like a
yeah.
whataboutism to me. We're starting with the tactics already. Now we're gonna move
look
over
at you.
to
debating the fucking people. Look at you.
Okay, Leaf. I think I've been to basically everybody except for Xander Hall. Xander Hall, were you able to finally get it fixed?
You haven't done me yet.
That's the answer to me, I guess, because I can't hear Xander Hall.
I can go while he does that. I haven't gone yet.
Oh, sorry. Josie Rose.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's fine. I want that cereal that has estrogen in it. It would be a really cool way to take my estrogen every morning. So I'm down. So like, let's do it. Like marshmallow flavored, like that would be super great. Anyways, joking, of course. But no, I think that this is a complete disaster for our country, because this is going to be one of those things that are just going to loom over the country of like, oh, what was actually going on? And, you know, I when I thought about this, I was like, oh, the Republicans are really going this direction. It's like, what about Benghazi? And I know people have already made that take a million times, but it was the first thing I thought about, is the fact that they investigated the fact that a few embassy people unfortunately lost their lives, and we had 5 people die and 140 police officers injured. And like the whole process of that, it's like, are we going to stand for that thin blue line? Like that's the thing that kind of made me like, hey, now, like at least have the simple principles of the ones that you say that you're having, right? And so I think it's a giant mistake. I think that it's just another symbol of hypocrisy. I think American kind of Nacho like nailed it on the head when he was like, nobody's going to take the Republican Party seriously, because it's like, what are they going to say? It doesn't matter. It's just corrupt anyway, right? It's just like, it doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want. They'll run roughshod. It's not a serious party anymore. And I feel bad that the Republicans are now basically being consumed by the MAGA cult. But I feel like that's what they're happening, because they're literally shielding themselves to it. So that's unfortunate. So I don't know if Xander Hall can hear us or not, but I guess it would be.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
I suppose I wasn't clicking on my push to talk button hard enough, maybe.
Yeah, but I also can't see you.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix that. I was up until midnight last night, from like 6 p.m. to midnight, trying to fix it. I got it working for a while, then it just shit out again. So I don't know what to do there, but hopefully my audio is okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, but seeing you is pretty important for like the whole panel thing.
Yeah.
Can you cut the camera to your OBS and just use it in Whereby?
Yeah, I can try that. Yeah. Well, that's what I've been doing, but I can just put my camera in there. Just disable my camera on OBS and just use it there.
Yeah, that might work.
I'll try it.
Okay. Do you want to say your introduction while you continue to fix your stuff?
Yeah, sure. So we're talking about the Republicans blocking or refusing to approve the investigation.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think this is just kind of pointless, because it seems like anything that's found isn't really going to be that much of a surprise anyway. There was a ton of Republicans that were on Trump's side. There were a ton that weren't on Trump's side during the whole election scuffle, where there was the claims of the voter fraud and what have you. And I don't know if anything there would be found. It seems like most of the Republicans that are super hardcore on the MAGA train are very publicly and openly super hardcore on the MAGA train. So I don't feel like there's much that would be found, but at the end of the day, I haven't heard anything that I disagree with particularly.
Okay, so the roundtable is free. You can engage with others. But I will say, of course, while this isn't a rule, it's a motto. You know, always be nice. Make sugar your favorite spice, okay? So you can begin.
I wanted to point out, 'cause
Sprouticus
this is
on
something
back
that I
there.
was trying to say. I was trying to say this in like my opening, but I don't like to like invoke people in my opening. I don't understand why, even if you think that this like isn't going to come up with anything, if you think this is going to be a witch hunt, like why would you not want the Democrats to like waste their time on it, and it would make them look bad, right? They would spend money, they would waste their time, and they would come up with nothing, and then
Because-
Republicans would potentially be in a better position for the midterms, right?
Because they're not going to be in a better position, and they would come up with something. So for instance, like I think the something would be basically that everybody kind of knew what was going to happen, and that they just let it slide anyways. I think they knew that there was going to be some kind of riot on behalf of, or at least mass protest on behalf of Donald Trump, that it was going to pressure Senate and congressional lawmakers in order to try to basically maybe not reverse the election, but kind of make like a last stand for the election. And maybe they weren't expecting a riot, but they were expecting a mass protest, and they encouraged it, and they encouraged it with their rhetoric. So basically, like, no, it doesn't make Democrats look bad. It makes Republicans look bad because they were playing with fire and they got burned publicly. So from a Republican strategist standpoint, I think this is probably the smartest move, because we all live on Twitter.com. People on Twitter.com have the memories of goldfish. So basically, 2 years from now might as well be a millennia from now. Everybody will forget this shit except for like some kind of like random mention to it. So
Sprouticus, your your mic is muted, so nobody can hear you.
Okay, so and Nacho, what you were saying, like you're saying that they're not going to come up with anything that's going to make the Republicans look bad, et cetera, and so on. The Benghazi investigations, the 10 Benghazi investigations the House had, it came up with almost absolutely nothing, but yet it still made the Democrats look bad. It still made it seem as this. No, it still did. It still made Hillary Clinton look bad. To the point where Hillary Clinton still today is blamed for Benghazi. It was blamed for Benghazi.
Two Republicans.
And yet she was still able to run and almost win the election.
Imagine if she didn't have the investigations in Benghazi, Hillary Clinton wouldn't have had that smear campaign. That's all it was a smear campaign. That's all Democrats are really trying to do, is they're trying to bring a smear campaign against the Republicans in hopes that they can keep the House and the Senate in 2022. Because as it stands right now, the Democrats are losing the House and the Senate in 2022, and that's their worst fear, because Joe Biden's going to be able to do absolutely nothing because the Republicans are going to stop him. It's going to be a dead halt. So that's where I stand. It's a waste of time and a waste of money to add on top of that.
I don't share your pessimism that the Democrats are going to lose the House and the Senate. It's way too early to make that kind of a prediction right now.
Oh, it's optimism. It's optimism. I'm sorry. Did you confuse that?
Well, no, I understand it's optimism.
Oh, okay.
Optimism from your perspective. From my perspective is pessimism. But I don't share that point of view. It's way too early to make that kind of a call. And just to sort of address your earlier framing of where we're at right now, you framed the Biden presidency as a disaster. That is certainly a minority opinion in this country. He has a rock solid approval rating. He's passing popular policies. And as long as he continues to do that for the next 2 years, the Democrats do have a shot in 2022 to keep the House. It's going to be difficult because there's an incumbent's sort of disadvantage when it comes to the pendulum swing in this country. But we live in unprecedented times, and it's really impossible to predict where this is going to go. The issue isn't Joe Biden's quote-unquote disastrous presidency, because he's having a very successful presidency so far. A lot can change, but so far he's doing well, delivering on his promises and whatnot. But the more pressing issue is the fact that the census results came back and we lost like 6 seats. So it's going to make that job that much more difficult.
So your argument is essentially that because the polls say that Biden's a good president, we can see how well the polls did in 2016 and 2020. Polls were absolutely failures in 2016 and 2020. They failed to predict anything. Polls are just people taking polls are just people taking guesses. It doesn't matter about national in 2022, does it? It all matters about state. So polls absolutely showed absolutely nothing during 2016 and 2020. They just showed that they're an absolute failure. It's just people taking guesses. Now that polls can be manipulated in many different ways depending on who you call, how you phrase the questions, et cetera, and so on.
Well,
I'm sorry if I don't listen to the polls that everyone says that Biden is God. It's insane.
You don't need to apologize.
People I talk to say that Biden is absolutely awful, even the left.
Well, I mean, sure, you can find some people on the left that really cannot stand Biden, and they all live on Twitter, by the way, but they don't represent like the mainstream of the electorate, which is by and large happy with the Biden presidency so far. And to your point about polls, we had a few. There was certainly the case that in some states the polls were like wildly off. Florida, I think Iowa was like 10 points off. But we're talking about like crucial swing states where they got the data wrong. But that doesn't suggest that polling like as an institution is totally worthless, because it's not. It's just not.
Yeah, it's kind of pointing polling as a zero-sum game, right? Like, it's better to have the polling data than to not have the polling data, even if there are flaws with the polling data.
And as a researcher, like there's so many different ways that you can actually look at data. You look at methodologies, you can see those type of things. You can actually make really strong predictions from polls. But the thing is, his argument isn't just about polls. I feel like you kind of zoomed in on polls because that was something you wanted to fight. But the question still stands of like, is the argument you're making that the Democrats would be too strong in a like what do you call it, an investigation? Because like the idea like an independent commission is going to go and do these investigations. I've never heard a Republican make the argument before that the Democrats are too strong and that they would hurt us even if they find nothing.
So
Like-
let me take this, Josie. So I don't think the Democrats are too strong. I think the exact opposite. I think Democrats are too weak. With that being said, I think Democrats are going to find absolutely nothing. You guys got away with Russian collusion for 2 years, which hurt the Republicans. It was a smear campaign against Republicans. For 2 years, you got away with just keeping that investigation going. They're not going to find anything. It's just going to be a smear campaign. It's going to
wait, hold on, wait. Democrats,
we had an investigation in between this. What?
The
Go ahead.
Democrats weren't responsible for the investigation into Russia. That was fucking Rosenstein, who was a Republican appointee in the administration. That wasn't like a Democrat-led investigation into collusion.
Sorry, who was in charge of the Russian collusion investigation?
Robert Mueller, a Republican.
Okay, Robert Mueller. He's not a Republican, but okay.
He is a Republican. Yes, he
He's
is.
not a Republican.
What is
He's
the
like a lifelong
qualifier?
Republican.
What is the only non-Republican thing that he's ever done then?
Robert Mueller?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at his past. He's not a Republican. Look at his past. Just I'm
Like
leaving it
what?
at that. We're not going to say here. We're not going to say.
But
that's
that's the thing, though. That's the thing. It's
So
like,
the investigation was brought in by the left. The left chose
Wait,
Robert Mueller.
It wasn't brought on by the left.
I'm curious.
It was brought on by the left.
I'm
No,
curious.
it wasn't.
Stop. Okay, stop for a second. So the question was posed: what about Robert Mueller's past makes him a like not a Republican or a left winger? Is there any? You said look at his past. What about his past? I'm just curious.
Look at the way Robert Mueller has decided cases in the past. Look at the way Robert Mueller has investigated cases in the past. To add into that, it was brought on by the left. The right certainly did not bring in an impeachment campaign against the president of the United States. So it was a left.
Had
It was a
nothing to
left
do with
house.
Russian. You're mixing your talking points because
No, I'm not missing my talking points.
Yes, you are, because the impeachment had nothing to do with Russian collusion. He was not impeached for Russian collusion. And
Really?
you just keep
So Robert
ignoring.
Mueller's report had nothing to do with the impeachment.
No,
right?
he was impeached. He was
Yeah,
impeached
that's
because
why they used it. Get out of here.
brother. He was impeached for the Ukrainian shenanigans, and then he was impeached for his role in the January 6th insurrection. At no point in any of those impeachment hearings was Russian collusion brought up.
Well, okay, Hutch. I understand that we're fucking, jumping around here a little bit, but I mean, are we pretending that the Russian investigation or the Russian collusion narrative wasn't an attempt to basically say that Donald Trump basically worked with state actors and non-state actors in order to manipulate the elections? Because I mean, even as like a layperson who basically thought there was a lot of smoke, but maybe not a lot of fire, basically that was my interpretation of the entire narrative, was basically like Rachel Maddow going on, MSNBC every 3 months and being like, we're going to drop a bombshell. And then it was fucking, not much. So, I mean, otherwise, what was the political point of the collusion narrative, if not to insinuate that Donald Trump was working with Russia in order to steal the election?
But the person who's responsible for that narrative to begin with was Trump and his entire cabinet during the transition, who acted the way that they did. And the Mueller report didn't come out. The Mueller report didn't come out and exonerate Trump. As much as right wingers like to say that, it explicitly says in the Mueller report that he is not clearing Donald Trump of criminal wrongdoing. But that's a whole other rabbit hole. Democrats obviously are going to use the Mueller report politically, just like the Republicans would do the other way around. This is politics. This is just what happens. But the idea that the Democrats were responsible for the investigation into Donald Trump is just simply false. He was appointed by a Republican.
Can you correct me then? Because basically the narrative that I've received in the past was that the Steele dossier was the thing that was used in order to support the FISA court warrants, that was then used in order to do the Russia investigation, that was then used in order to insinuate that, basically Donald Trump, even before he was elected, I think, was colluding with, Russian foreign nationals in order to subvert democracy and steal the election. And the Steele dossier, if I remember correctly, it was like, goddamn, who was it? It was like, it was basically like some, external think tank or some shit like that. That was basically, I think they had funding from both camps that basically said that that in order to pay for the Steele dossier.
Yeah, the initial funding for the I know you're talking Fusion GPS. That's the group that you're talking about right now. The initial group that was funding Fusion GPS was a group of Republicans that initially backed. I don't know. Are we supposed to be relitigating like the Russia collusion stuff? Right? Like we can get into that, but I feel like we're kind of.
We don't have to, but just my main thrust was you were kind of making it sound like, well, Republicans started this, and so they should just be okay with whatever. But I'm okay with that because I think there's different kinds of Republicans. But I think we could just grant to the argument that what was happening was Donald Trump was being targeted for removal for office, regardless of whether or not you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. He, like a dick nugget, because I don't like Donald Trump, basically made up the fucking election fraud allegations. He spun up his base to be frothy and fucking assholish in the lead up to the inauguration of Joe Biden, and then basically started a mass protest that turned into a riot and stormed the Capitol. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's really what we're talking about here is like, kind of like, do you think that relitigating any part of this is productive? And I think what I've said so far, and I think what American Nacho, or wait, no, I think what I've said so far and what Sprouticus has said so far is that this isn't relitigating all this shit is not advantageous to Republicans politically.
Of course not. Which is, I mean, of course, and which is, of course, why they're going to oppose it.
So the thing is, though, it's like we're trying to do this investigation and what is happening because it's a federal crime that was committed, and the Congress just said we're not going to investigate a federal crime. If this happened in a state house or a city, a municipality, like we wouldn't even be having the conversation about are we going to litigate an effing crime. And the thing is, it's like because this was political, like now there are people who can literally be above the law. Like regardless of Democrat or Republicans, regardless of that, human people died that day, and they were police officers. I'm a veteran in the United States military. I know what it's like to serve in uniform, and the idea that people died in uniform on the Capitol building, inside, on the steps, like, are you kidding me right now? Like, it pissed me off as a red-blooded American who actually did serve this country, because I was like, this is effed up. Like, I was watching it and I was disturbed deeply because I swore an oath to protect this country from foreign and domestic enemies. And we're just going to let it walk away because somebody says it's a witch hunt? That is not the case here.
Josie, are you confused? Because first off, Congress can't go after someone criminally. That's the FBI's job. The FBI's job is to go after people criminally. And the FBI does have a current investigation in this. They are investigating this. They are arresting people. They are doing what they need to do. This congressional 9/11 investigation commission would be an absolute witch hunt. FBI's already investigating this. They're already making arrests. And you think that Congress is going to be able to do a better job at holding someone criminally responsible than the FBI?
What's wrong with
because one thing, I'm going to say this one thing, because when you are going after your colleagues, you need a commission, because right now there is clear evidence that they were representatives on the floor that knew this was happening and basically colluded with these insurrectionists. And if you are having colleagues on the floor as a representative in Congress, hell yeah, you need a commission, because the FBI doesn't have enough leverage because it's run by the executive branch to start legislating or to start criminal actions against federal Congress people, like especially if the cabal.
That's why it's not going to happen.
Matt Gaetz is underneath an investigation by the FBI right now. So to argue that the FBI can't hold criminal charges against a sitting senator is absolutely asinine. No, it's absolutely asinine to me that you're going to
fucking a 17-year-old.
Okay, I understand. I understand that, but the argument that was brought up was that the FBI doesn't have enough leverage to bring criminal charges against it. Yes, you said the FBI doesn't have enough leverage to bring criminal charges against a. That's exactly what you said, Jesse.
I know. I say they don't have that much leverage. I said
they do. Okay, that's what I'm saying. The argument that was being said is the FBI does not have enough leverage to bring criminal charges against a sitting congressman? Well, Matt Gaetz. So Matt Gaetz has criminal charges against him being investigated by the FBI. So to argue that the FBI doesn't have enough leverage to investigate a sitting congressman is absolutely asinine to me, because it's happening right now.
But what I want out of this, as someone on the right, as someone who, just like CounterPoints, is not like Donald Trump, like I want all of those people held responsible for their actions. I want everybody who's like sucking Trump's dick to be called out, and I want them fucking replaced. Like, I don't know, like
this is never gonna happen. Like, this is never gonna
I mean,
happen.
At the very least, you can bring all this shit to light. I know they're pretty loud about it already, but I mean, I don't know.
I just want to talk about the descriptive side of this really quick, okay? Because here's the descriptive side of this. You're talking about 55% of the Republican base. You are asking 35 to 40% of the Republican base to go to war with 50 to 55% of the Republican base. And basically, one, that's never going to happen. And then two, Sprouticus, I would submit this to you because I think we need to be consistent with our deep state narratives. Okay, so I'm a person who believes in the deep state. Sorry, Josie, I know I'm going to disappoint you. You're probably going to stop smiling in a second. But basically, what I would say is that there are people who are covered by the deep state. Okay, so as an example, a lot of people were boys with Jeffrey Epstein. And they probably either were hanging out with underage prostitutes or having sex with underage prostitutes. This isn't being investigated aggressively. Basically, what was it? It was like during an investigation into Hillary Clinton for the illicit server that she had. The ex-president Bill Clinton sits down with the state attorney of the fucking country. Like you can't tell me that there aren't people who are above prosecution, above investigation, don't have a disproportionate amount of basically influence where they can get away with shit. The reason why Matt Gaetz is being served up on a platter is not because he had sex with a 17-year-old. It's because he was dumb enough to have sex with a 17-year-old, let it come to light, and he doesn't have enough fucking leverage to bribe away his sex assault victims, and he doesn't have enough friends on fucking Capitol Hill to help him cover it up. That's why Matt Gaetz is being served up, not because no offense, but to anybody here, but basically, I believe in the QAnon conspiracy, not literally, but I do think a shitload of fucking powerful people have sex with underage prostitutes, and it's used as blackmail against them in order to hold them accountable to each other. So yeah, like they might not kill them and eat them and shit, but yeah, we have a bunch of fucking people who like to fuck underage prostitutes in positions of power in this country.
I love you.
That's a heavy point to just drop and just like Denims, go ahead and go. You look like you want to say something. Go for it.
I don't know how to follow that up. I see we've gotten like super off the topic is all.
Yeah.
Yes, I was about to say that we're not here to talk about pedophilia in government. We are here to talk about the January 6th Commission. So I do think the next people talking have to talk about the January 6th Commission.
Okay, is there anyone here that's against it, or like against the commission existing? Sorry, what was your reason again for being against it?
I think it's a waste of time. I think it's a waste of money, and I think it's just going to be a smear campaign against the Republicans. Just like I believe that Benghazi was a waste of time, a waste of money, and it was just used as a smear campaign against the Democrats.
Okay, and I'm there too from a pragmatic standpoint, not from a moral standpoint. Morally, it should be investigated. It's just not going to be.
Can we gauge something real quick? Sprouticus, how serious do you take the events of January 6th? Do you think it was a big deal, or do you think it was
a big deal? I 100% support the FBI investigating this and hold people criminally charged for what they did on the day of January 6th. I'm 100% for the FBI figuring out who was in there, figuring out what was done, arresting them, and then putting them in jail. But what I'm not for is a smear campaign against the Republicans that came out and condemned this. It's widely condemned by the Republican Party right now, January 6th. To come and try and do a smear campaign against a party that's widely condemned January 6th is where I'm going to draw the line.
I think you're sort of incorrectly conflating the Benghazi hearings and the special committees in the House with independent commission in Congress, because it's not the same thing. However, now we will probably see a Benghazi-style sequence of hearings in the House because Republicans refused to go along with with an independent commission. This would have been 10 people, 5 appointed by Democrats, 5 appointed by Republicans. This wouldn't have been Democratic senators that are chairs of certain committees just grandstanding and trying to make trying to score like cheap political points. That would have happened after the commission released their results. Then the politics would have started. But it's not like the investigation would have come from the senators themselves. It's not like the Benghazi stuff. And if you take it seriously, and if you're in favor of accountability, the scope of this investigation is massive. Like, think of the manpower that they need to go through these thousands and thousands and thousands of videos and social media posts. It's taken them months. They're still rounding up people right now. So if you take this seriously, and I take it very seriously, I want to know why it happened. I want to know how it happened. I want to know how to prevent something like this from happening in the future. Then it would be a good idea to have a supplemental investigation to assist them in their efforts as well.
But Hutch, you know why it happened.
We all know why it happened and how it happened. The police, the DC police did not have the proper amount of barriers, the proper amount of people to guard the White House, to guard the Capitol. And so with that being said, they got overran by protesters. They knew this was going to happen.
Okay,
They decided
But
not
don't
to have
you want to
those
know
people there.
why though? Don't you want to know why the DC police weren't there? I think that's an important thing to know, right? Why are you so uninterested in that question?
Okay,
the
so
FBI is taking care of people criminally. This, like I said, they're not going to investigate. They're not going to investigate the DC police. It's just not going to.
That's literally in the bill. That's not true.
That's what the commission was supposed to do.
It's going to be a smear campaign against Republicans. You're not going to see
Section 401A to
keep
conduct
interrupting, so it's
investigation of activities of intelligence
It's cool.
agencies, law
No, it's
enforcement
cool.
agencies, the armed forces, including with respect to intelligence collection, analysis, and dissemination of information sharing among relevant instrumentality of government.
This is like
that is literally in the.
This is
bill.
like kicking a fucking support beam that's termite infested. Like, I have no idea what you guys are seeking to gain by this. Like, you're literally like, we already fucking know. We know. What are you hoping to gain?
We're talking about a more granular level. So, like, if you take a look at, there was a news story that came out this last week where there were members of the Oath Keepers that were exchanging emails and text messages with each other. And the Oath Keepers, if you don't know, they're like this like far right extremist group. And they discovered through these text messages that they were literally standing back and waiting for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act. After which point they had intentions to go in and straight up execute people that were getting in the way of Trump's agenda, and that included members of the GOP as well. So there's a lot to learn. Like we may know like sort of like the broad reasons for why this happened. It's not exactly like a giant mystery. The president and the leader of one political party in this country relentlessly lied to his voters and got many of them to believe something that simply wasn't true. And if it was true, they would have been justified in an insurrection. But I'm talking about there's like 1,000 other whys to explore here with something as complex as the events of January 6th. I just don't see the downside. I mean, I understand if you're a Republican and you're concerned about the midterms, then yeah, I would understand why you would oppose this. But if you strip politics away from it altogether, I don't understand the downside of just getting more information.
So I wanted to say really quickly as well. I can kind of see the defense on why you don't think it's worth doing, right? Because the people who believe the insurrection was caused by Trump and was caused by MAGA people, like those people who believe that narrative already believe it. It's not like there will be new information unless there is new information that shows that they didn't prove it somehow or that they didn't cause it. And the people who don't think MAGA had anything to do with it and are still in denial that the insurrection like never happened and that people just were protesting peacefully, like there's no information that's going to convince them, right? But I think in terms of like historical sense, isn't it good to like have that like noted? Like we can like look back at this event and we actually have real information on these things.
And I would like to build off of what Denims just said, because I agree with it. But I'd also like to say that for those who might be a little more agnostic to the issue, maybe a little more apolitical, it would provide people with more evidence to support their arguments as well. So,
yeah, okay. So here's my
Supporting
thing.
Anybody that's still apolitical at this point? Like, how are you coming into all of this?
Katarana, please. Lots of people are apolitical. Tons of, nobody on this panel is, or probably watching this is, but a lot of people are.
There's some people that are like, I don't know about that insurrection thing. Like, yeah, maybe people were actually just you know.
Yeah, because people are
There's people
susceptible
like
to
that.
tons of propaganda all the fucking time, and it's not necessarily other people's fault. So you got to be able to prepare to talk to those people and be kind to those
Are
people,
the people
and
that
present people with those arguments too.
Yeah, but they'll send people. Let's say we go ahead and have a commission. If they're so apolitical that they can't go ahead and decipher different types of information for themselves to get an actual clear opinion, what's the commission going to do for them? It's not like they'd be able to read that
not
either.
not for them. For those who are presenting the information to them, it just provides them with more of a case. That's all that I'm saying.
I mean, the 9/11
That-
commission was
that-
that.
Wait, I'm gonna have Hutch go, and then we're gonna go to counterpoints.
I'm not gonna say
Please,
too much, so-
nobody interrupt me. I have to use the bathroom quick. Okay, I'll be right back.
I wasn't going to say much, but I was just going to say that the 9/11 commission was valuable, and it did provide valuable insight that we still use to this day. So there's that.
Yeah, and then okay, so this is kind of where I'm at. Okay, and we can poke these wounds if we want to. I just don't know. I don't think y'all are ready for it. Basically, so there's probably, I don't know, 25% of the voting population and maybe 15 to 20% of the American population that are hyper-constitutional conservative, basically think that activist, leftist, and progressive judges have careened us far away from the original charter of the United States of America, that they impose unconstitutional laws all the time, that COVID and the response to COVID, along with gun control laws, are gross breaches and oversteps of federal and state level authority, and that the only thing that is going to save this country is either a strong figure who's going to stand up to all the bullshit, or a revolutionary libertarian insurrection, and then that kind of splits off there whether or not you want to start a like neo-monarchist fascist government with Donald Trump or the Trump dynasty at the head, or if you want to restart like a 1776 constitutionalist libertarian fucking Ancapistan. That's literally 15 to 20% of the population, and by the way, I have some sympathies there. The problem that I have with the investigation is basically what's going to happen is you're going to uncover exactly this. You're going to find members of the military, National Guard, law enforcement, civilians, Republicans, all that kind of stuff, who all sympathize with this movement. And what you're going to do is you're probably going to result in additional prosecutions. These people might, this is like skimming the fucking surface of the actual like sentimentality. And what I would appeal to you as leftists is basically, rather than trying to choose a few fucking martyrs to punish, because we already know there's already going to be some martyrs from this action anyways, as far as like the DOJ and federal prosecutions, my argument would be, let's address the material conditions. Why do people feel desperate? Why are people looking for a strong leader? Why do they feel cornered? Why do they feel like there's no hope and that we're so endlessly gone because you motherfuckers keep sneaking estrogen into our fucking Fruit Loops? So this is stop sneaking estrogen into our Fruit Loops without telling us about it, you fucking assholes.
If somebody
First
committed,
off, it would be Lucky Charms, and it would not be Fruit Loops. Okay, so
if somebody
Go
committed
ahead.
murder, I'm sorry, just real quick. So if somebody committed murder, would you make the same argument? Like, we shouldn't focus on figuring out like if he actually committed the murder or why he committed the murder. We need to focus on the material conditions that led to this person committing murder in the first place. It just seems like kind of.
Hutch, stole my argument.
It feels like
I'm sorry, Joby.
the argument I deal with you assholes with all the time.
One at a time. There was like 3 people at once. Raise your hand if you want to speak.
Okay, I want to go.
Okay, I'm going to rate this. Okay, Layman just fucking coming in last second. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so Josie, Sprout, Nacho. Okay, we're gonna start with Josie.
Okay,
Josie Rose.
so awesome. So Hutch took a piece of my argument, but I want to make it bigger. So the idea of like, isn't it a conservative value to like have a level of institution that like is involved in punishment to deter crime from happening and other things? Like, I'm just asking, isn't that a value? So like, as long as we give capital punishment, then therefore people won't commit murder. So therefore, if you cause an insurrection, then and you get punished and go to jail for all your life, then maybe you won't do that again, or other people won't do that.
called Law and
Yeah,
Order.
right. Okay, so why all of a sudden is it now? Because like you pose the question of like, hey, why do you want all these things? But like I could have swore, like Hutch said, is like if this was a capital punishment case or things like that. If you know, I remember when the liberal person or the supposed liberal person went and shot up the Republican baseball players. And like, you would be completely pissed off if they were like, they should have just let that person go. Like, we need to figure out what caused that person to figure out what suffering they had to lead them up to shooting up the Republicans. Did the Republican Party harm them in some way? Maybe we should investigate. Right? So that's my argument. I'm just literally saying the same argument that you said to us.
I'm waiting my turn.
Okay.
It just sounds
Fair
like
enough.
So, wait, is it my turn?
I don't know whose turn it is. Dylan,
I'm
whose turn
Next
is
is
it?
going to be Sprout.
Okay. So, Josie, guess what? The FBI did investigate the baseball shooting. Hutch, the FBI is investigating, such as in a capital murder case, the state police or whoever's in charge of investigating that would investigate that. Again, I've said again, I am pro the FBI investigating this. I am pro the FBI arrest. I am pro people going to jail for this. What I'm not pro is a smear campaign against a political party, because it's a political process. It would just be a political smear campaign. The only charges you'd probably get out of this is lying to Congress, which is the only thing that came out of Russian collusion. Or tax evasion. I'm sorry, tax evasion too maybe might come out of this. But it's a political smear campaign that's trying to be brought up. I'm 100% pro the FBI investigating, such as the police would investigate a murder. To bring those points up seems bad faith to me, knowing that Congress can't hold people criminally liable for these kind of things. It's the FBI, it's the court of law that can hold people criminally liable for these types of things, not Congress. So yes,
And can
I'm
I have
pro
a quick
FBI.
counterpoint? Just a quick one. Just a quick one. Quick.
Well, I guess Dylan,
So
I'm not done yet.
but if by a chance that it is bigger than you're saying, isn't it a good to leave no rock unturned rather than saying it probably didn't happen that way? Wouldn't you want to investigate it?
The FBI.
What
is
if you're
investigating.
wrong?
Like, are we
No, but what if
ignoring
you're
the
wrong
FBI's
is my
investigating this?
question.
We are ignoring basically the entire panel. We're ignoring the FBI is investigating this. You guys are acting like it's okay. Everyone who did it gets to go away scot free, because the FBI is not investigated. The Republicans told FBI not to investigate it. No, what the Republicans did is they said we didn't want a smear campaign against us and going into 2022, because it's the Democrats' last hope of keeping the House and/or the Senate. This is ridiculous, and it's continuously been forgotten. This panel, the FBI is investigating this case. They are making arrests. They are putting charges on people, and that's been constantly forgotten in this panel.
Yeah, there's no value in arresting the assassin and not finding out who's paid them. Just saying.
The FBI still does that, just in case you didn't know.
Okay, next is going to be Nacho.
So I wanted to ask a clarifying question too, because I don't know if counterpoints. You're trying to say that like it's kind of like too big of a problem to solve. Like there's too many people to go after. I mean, because
we're. Yeah. So actually, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because okay, I just didn't want to misrepresent because that just seems like more of like a cop out. Like that's like the shit that we hear from like Chicago or whatever, where it's like, oh, well, the gangs are just too big. We need to look at like the reasons why they're pushed to this. Like we can do both at the same time. Like you can go after those who are like committing the violence, and you can look into like the reasons why they're getting to that point at the same time. Like I don't understand why we can't do both.
Sure. And okay, so I'll just use my response in order to articulate my points, and then I don't need my space in line anymore. I'm down, like 100%. I'm fucking down. But basically what we're going to do, which I don't think you guys are ready for, is basically we're going to go after people. We're sitting congressmen, senators. We're going to go after probably the former president of the United States. And on top of that, it's going to be this very murky area where we're going to get into what amounts to, I think the left calls it stochastic terrorism. It's where you use rhetoric in such a way that you're not actually explicitly calling for violence, but you're leading people up to the logical conclusions that would basically bring them to the step of violence. So what we're going to have is we're going to have Ted Cruz. Sorry, I'll be quick. So we're going to have fucking Ted Cruz tweeting out, the election is stolen, fucking Texans, rise up. And then the FBI is going to go to Ted Cruz and they're going to say, hey, what did you mean by this? And he's like, listen, I know I said Texans commit jihad, but jihad's more like a spiritual struggle. It's more like a metaphor. It's more like, it's more like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. So even though I was explicitly saying that the election was stolen, and I used the word jihad against the federal government, it's a spiritual thing. It's not a literal thing. And then that motherfucker's going to walk. That's exactly what's going to happen.
What it sounds like is that you're saying that accountability is bad because you could possibly incentivize far-right extremists to commit violence.
I mean, it depends on how far you want to fucking go. Like, listen, guys, if you're ready to go fucking full bore, I'm down. Let's fucking do this shit. I think it's a lot better. So politically, this is like the metaphorical equivalent to me of like, there's like 4 posts in a fucking building and one of them is rotted out with fucking termites. And you guys are like, I'm saying like, hey, we should probably brace this with like support beams and then like maybe circle back around on this later. And you guys are like, nah, let's just kick that motherfucker out and see where it goes. And I'm like, hey, if y'all are down to rip this piece of shit down to the ground and start from scratch, I'm fucking down. I just don't think you're fucking ready to kick that support beam and have the whole house fucking collapse on you. That's all I'm saying. But either way, we need to rebuild the house.
I think we're overdue for that shit. Like, yeah.
Okay, let's fucking do it.
I think we have to go after a lot of those corrupt
check out
politicians,
the support
man.
beam, or we can get braces. I don't give a shit. Let's fucking
get them all out, man. I hope it's a domino effect, and we see all of them go down, man. All the corrupt politicians on all sides, man. Fuck
I don't share your problem. That's the problem. Is like we're protecting these bullies from doing the stuff that doesn't make sense. It's like, if you really believe in that, then we should be tearing this place down to the ground and figuring out who was involved with all of it. Like, let's do that.
You don't want me in charge of that.
But I mean, we should strive for that, though. Sprouticus, do you disagree with that point?
Do I disagree that we should kick the support beam out and watch the whole house fall? Yes. I think that I'm sticking to my guns here. I think the FBI has more than enough leverage to go after a congressman, to go after someone who's sitting. Just like CounterPoints said, if the FBI, I mean, even if Congress is going to question someone like Ted Cruz, when they say "Rise up, Texans," which I don't even think is that bad of, I don't even think that's that bad of a tweet. Regarding, he didn't say go attack the Capitol, neither did Donald Trump, which is what a lot of people forget. He said peacefully and patriotically, go let your voices be heard. That's an exact quote. So no, I 100% think the FBI can handle this. I 100% think the FBI will. They're already, like I said, they're already making arrests. They are investigating this. It's not like we don't have someone investigating this. If the FBI wasn't investigating this, sure, then yeah, I'd be okay with Congress taking it up. But guess what? The FBI is investigating this. It's just gonna be a political smear campaign. That's all it's going to be. That's all Benghazi investigations in the House were. I don't doubt that Democrats now are going to try and do January 6th investigations in the House to do just to kind of continue with that smear campaign that they're trying to do. It's getting ridiculous, and it's just going to be a waste of time and a waste of money.
Again, a better comparison would be the independent 9/11 Commission, and it was their job to sort of figure out like what the failings were in the government that could have allowed for something like the September 11th attack to happen. You know, what did we miss? Like, which channels did we close, and which channels did we leave open? It was about figuring out the fault of government behind that, instead rather than like going after like criminal referrals. I want to know what failures of government led to this. I do want to know that. God. I think it's my right to know that as an American citizen or have that information.
Okay. We are actually going to wrap this topic up and go on to the next one. So everybody's going to have a small period for outros, and since Counter is raising his hand, he'll go first.
Oh, okay, excellent. So you want to figure out what the fault of the government that caused this. Okay, so basically what happened was about 50 years, Reaganomics became popular, and Republicans said you shouldn't trust your government about anything. So they got even like every swinging dick Republican and fiscal conservative to agree to slashing essential social safety nets. They put insane people on the fucking street, and then what simultaneously happened is the NRA said that you basically need a minigun in your fucking living room, and if the government tries to prevent you from having a minigun in your living room, they're a bunch of tyrannical cunts. So that basically festered for about 30 to 40 years. And as economics slowly fucking shit on the middle class and the working class, people became increasingly frustrated. They turned to two prevailing fucking political philosophies, one of them being communism or socialism, and one of them being fascism. And without it actually being called fascism, they turned to a new strongman dictator type in order to save them from all their problems, because the world of 2021 is more complicated because Denims is in my country being brown, down and fucking, Josie's in my country injecting me with fucking estrogen. So because that is a very like terrifying world to be in, they turn to Donald Trump in order to solve all their fucking problems. Turns out that he can't. He's a strong man. He uses rhetoric more than he actually uses actual policy. And when he lost, because he's a bitter loser, he encouraged all his fucking people to riot at the Capitol. A combination of like spiritual, material, whatever, confluence of factors got people fucking desperate enough that they decided that storming the Capitol was the right thing to do in order to restore America to its former greatness. And as a result, they did it. So this is my final point before I yield. You're only going to catch, if this is a mafia analogy, you're only going to catch the low-level players. You're not going to catch the high-level players. Not only that, but you're basically going to worsen the tensions that have started this whole fucking snowball of bullshit. And if you actually want to fix any of these things, rather than calling Sprouticus or me or American Nacho, not anybody on this panel, but rather than calling us fucking Nazis for wanting like limited like immigration control and capitalism to continue existing, maybe you could address like some of like the spiritual, moral, physical conditions that make us desperate assholes who want to keep fucking miniguns in our living room. And I still want a minigun in my living room, despite me making all these points and making fun of it. Yield.
Okay, I agree. A world with denims is a disgusting future. We're gonna throw it over.
Wow!
We're gonna throw it.
Wow!
I
Wait.
I'm going to let all the lefties know that you hate Palestine.
Look at this rule list. Look, denims can't follow basic rules.
Wow, that's
not
crazy.
surprising.
That's crazy.
Not surprising.
It's not surprising that
Wow.
a gay man during Pride Month would be so flimsy with his own panelists.
Oh, I get it. We're all limp-wristed. I understand what you mean.
Exactly.
Okay,
I'm glad you finally get it. I'm glad you finally understand.
Yeah.
Leftist infighting at it again.
Wow, look at over there, Hutch laughing it up like I love my homophobia, my daily dose. I understand that. I mean, look, he has a shaven head. I mean, he's filling the profile. Speaking of Hutch, he is next.
Yeah, he's basically a neo-Nazi. Yeah.
Hutch.
No, I'm growing my hair back. You can see. Is it my turn? Is that what you said?
A quarter.
Yes, it is your turn.
So what? It is true that the FBI is investigating, comprehensively investigating, and I applaud them. They're doing a great job. They're rounding everybody up, and I can't even imagine how difficult that must be. Imagine being an agent sitting in a room and actually like going through all of these videos minute by minute. I mean, this is an exhaustive process, and they have my respect. But what they're not going to do at the end of it is put together a comprehensive report that links all these different threads together. There's just going to be these individual convictions. That's the point of an independent commission like this one. The country benefited from an independent commission for 9/11. There's no reason why we wouldn't benefit from a similar independent commission for this. And just as a side note, it really fucking pisses me off when people try to absolve Trump by saying that one time or two times in a 45-minute speech or whatever, he said, peacefully, of course, peacefully. And then he waited 3-4 hours to make any kind of a condemnation of the rioters that were in the Capitol building. And when he did, he told me he loved them. We love you. Go home. You're patriots. Go home. These were people that were like violently assaulting like Capitol Police members there. It was very obvious that he knew what he was doing. I just wish that certain Republicans and conservatives would just acknowledge what he did, acknowledge the part that he played. And it's disappointing that so many just can't. They constitutionally cannot. So with that, I yield. Thank you.
Next is going to be Katerina.
Hello. Yeah, I think this commission is still helpful. There's a difference distinctively between an independent commission and an FBI investigation. One of those things being that an FBI investigation has no necessity to be released to the public. So thus, there's no necessary reason to believe that we would get any final answers, whereas with this commission we could actually, like, as a country, get some form of answers. Perhaps like some people don't see the entire utility in that. Even like sometimes I can say, hey, I don't really trust the American public to go ahead and read fucking anything when it comes to making their decisions. But at the end of the day, I think the access of information is a very good thing to have. And hey, look, if one extra person reads it and is able to go ahead and make solid, have solid conviction on which side they're on, that's still a win to me. I don't know why there's just this opposition for like doing both. Like, it's wasting tax dollars. We waste a lot of tax dollars all the time. I'd rather them waste it on this than like buying the shiny, cool new fighter jet. So this is a decent compromise to me.
Okay. Next is going to be Layman.
Yeah, I think my position has pretty much been left unchanged throughout the entirety of this conversation, unfortunately, but that's okay. I think that I will just basically say that I agreed with Connor's point. Connor point. so funny. That it would be very, very beneficial to examine the underlying conditions that lead to situations like that happening in the first place. I think a lot of it, from what I've looked into, is mostly related to education. So if you don't have as much access to education, you are more likely to buy into things like conspiracy theories and stuff. So maybe investing in education would be a good, what's the word, prescription to that problem that could maybe prevent it from happening in the future and keep this degradation in America of like people losing all their faith in their civic institutions and shit like this happens in the first place. But I also agree with the lefty people that it's also a good idea to investigate it so your civic institutions can actually remain stable and remain strong. So that's my take. And yeah.
Okay. Next is going to be Sprouticus.
Again, I've remained unchanged this entire topic. The FBI is investigating this. This would have been a smear campaign, just as if the Republicans were going to investigate BLM and the riots over the summer and death that's happened there. It would be a smear campaign against the Democrats. You've seen the Republicans try and do it. You've seen the Republicans try and bring this up as a smear campaign against Democrats. Democrats are just trying to come up with a smear campaign against the Republicans. That's what's going to be used as. As I've said before, as it stands right now, Democrats don't have a chance to keep the House and the Senate, let alone both. So they're take over the House, I guess, is a tie. But I mean, take over the Senate, I guess it's a tie. But like I'm saying, it's just gonna be a smear campaign. It's gonna be a waste of money. Catarana said we waste tax dollars every day. Why does it matter if we waste more? And that's just a fundamental disagreement we're gonna have. Catarana is why should we waste more tax dollars? I'm fiscally conservative. I think that we should try and go back to actually having a budget. And keeping to it rather than just borrowing trillions and trillions of dollars over what we actually have. But that's where I'll leave that.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Josie Rose.
All right. So I agree with all the people who believe that we should have a commission. And, Sprouticus, you'd be a good Republican politician because you keep on saying the same thing over and over again, and we're going to believe it, maybe, that the FBI investigation is enough. Like Catarana said and Denims said, is that an FBI investigation isn't going to be reported to the public. The fact of the matter is we elect representatives to hold the institutions that are supposed to govern us accountable. And if you think that our institutions are going to save us, then you haven't been looking around. So I just want to implore that you really consider like what these things are supposed to do. And I am going through a political evolution right now, so I'm not like that super lefty like I used to be. I'm like a person who now works for like a nonprofit and is meant to be neutral because I'm trying to like pass bills for like trans people. So the fact of the matter, and I'm a researcher as well. So for me, when I look at things, I'm trying to look at things as clearly as possible for the system to be able to be trusted. And that's what we're trying to do. And for me, I feel like, CounterPoints said it. I used to have a game in college that I can point to every American problem that exists currently to Reagan's policy at some point. It was a parlor trick that I had in college. It was great. So, but yeah, you're right. Everything fails at Reagan, and this is now what we're left with. And I hope that you could be like, yeah, let's get our head out of the morass and work together on some stuff, because I think that's what we should be striving for and not trying to just protect our leader. But yeah, that's my point. Everybody else made great points. That's why I didn't really talk too much on the actual point itself.
Okay, I think everybody who needed to go went. So, yeah, I think we're going to go on to the next topic.
I didn't go.
Oh, American Nacho, you didn't go?
I did not.
I'm sorry. I would not want to forget American Nacho. The last person. American Nacho.
The last Nacho. So, yeah, I say let's weed them all out. Let's get this ball rolling because to use Connor's example and even something that Sprout brought up, like if we just keep reinforcing the rotted boards, if we just keep, not paying attention to inflation, like we saw what happens, like we had a chance to correct, similar things in relation to this kind of, like let's just put this off. Let's just not look at this for now. We had the 2008 housing market crash. We knew this was coming for a long time. There were plenty of loud voices on both sides that were advocates of like correcting this problem and doing something to fix it or doing something to address it. We avoid it. We just put it on the back burner, and then we see what happens in the future. It's just something that it's like, do we take care of this now? Do we take and replace this border, or do we just avoid the imminent catastrophe that's to come later? So another thing, like the low level players always rat out at least one of the bigger players. So even if there's just one big player that gets taken down, I think that's enough. I think if the last 4 years have proved anything, it's that our system is definitely capable of withstanding a few radical individuals. So I say, yeah, fuck it, let's kick the post out. That's my take.
Wonderful. So everybody went.
All right, my final opinions. I wanted to comment on one just specific thing. All right, I just don't agree with the narrative. I think that there are useful reasons on like why we shouldn't approach it or why we shouldn't build the commission today or something. I think you can maybe make some weak argument, but I just don't think that the argument is that we shouldn't document this event and figure out more details about it because some people are going to use it to smear another party. Like that shouldn't be the reason we choose to not do things. Like if we use that like logic for like everything, we would just not be looking into like anything ever, right? Like all the Hillary email stuff. Can you imagine if like people were like, well, what if we don't look into her emails because the Republicans are going to use it to smear her? And it's like, well, there you would just have a defense for like everything. I think it's just, I think we should, if the commission can uncover stuff that we don't know, which is their goal, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, now we're going to join the discourse. One moment.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Dylan Burns, in that moment, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Here we go.
Which is?
Do you have a last time, first time rule?
Oh, do you mean like the first time you open up in the next topic is the last time you can mention the last topic, basically?
Yes.
Yes, we do, for your intros only.
Okay.
Okay, dope. So I've put on the queer ears, and we're gonna be talking about Kink at Pride. I wasn't here when that all like kind of kicked off, so I still need to cash in on that. Yeah. And funnily enough, I think I'll be the first queer person to actually be the person managing a roundtable talking about Kink at Pride.
Nice.
Thank God.
Thank
Not true,
goodness.
but nice try.
Right, true. Who did that?
Hans.
Hans queer?
Yeah.
Huh.
Get fucked.
By Hans? I mean,
Look at it.
He's
Look
like
at
the
his
straightest
face. Look at
gay
his
guy I know.
silence.
wait, no, wait. I mean, it's by Hans. Anyway, we're gonna move on. We're gonna start with Josie Rose. What's your thoughts on this issue?
Oof, you pulled me in. I've been avoiding talking about this topic throughout the entire discourse, but here I am. So I am kind of disappointed that this is still in the discourse, because as somebody who is a queer trans woman, and somebody who's been attending Pride even before a transition where I was presenting cis het, Pride has always been a place where I've always felt welcomed. And Pride has always been the place where I see hundreds of thousands. I live in San Diego. So hundreds of thousands of people go to Pride every year, except for last year, obviously. And the amount of love and support that is there throughout the entirety of the parade, the energy stays in it the whole time. I've walked every Pride parade since 2014. So for me, I understand the inclusion that happens at Pride, but I will say one thing is off, and that is that we still don't have enough youth participation in Pride in a way that is good. Now, what I mean by that is I'm a researcher, right? So I actually have data to support that young queer people have the highest level of a higher level of substance abuse than their cis and or not cis peers, but their LGBTQ peers. I mean, sorry, their heteronormative peers. There's the word I'm looking for. So their heteronormative peers have lower substance abuse rates than the queer peers. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that we should have events. Like in San Diego, we have something called the Queer Prom, where like all the local high schools have a place where they go and they have a good time at Pride, and it's supervised and it's amazing. And the beer garden's over there and everybody's having a great time, right? And it's a really, really powerful thing. And I think that we shouldn't focus on this very minor, tiny little thing that really nobody was talking about except for a few days ago, ruin the discourse of what Pride is supposed to be, which is an inclusive celebration and a place for us to be proudly queer, because we're supposed to respect the people of the past who had to protest and got their heads cracked open for this stuff, right? So you can have both of those things respected when you do this. And so what I would love to see is that, and I'm not trying to criticize you for having this discussion. I think it is pertinent for us to have it, but I'm just disappointed that we are now 4 days into Pride and we're still talking about Pride not being inclusive enough or already inclusive, when the discourse should be like, Pride is happening, it's amazing, right? And that's a disappointing thing. So
Okay.
I look forward to the discourse.
Next, we're going to throw it over to Sprouticus.
I don't think kink should be shown publicly whatsoever. Not only am I only talking about Pride, I'm talking about Mardi Gras. I'm talking about the Halloween parades that you see it in. I'm talking about much bigger things than just Pride. I don't think it should be shown publicly like it is. And with that, like, I think that Pride can find a private place, such as inside, to show off their kinks if they want to go celebrate their kinks. From my understanding, Pride isn't about showing it off. I'm into BDSM, or I like pet play. From my understanding, that's not Pride. Pride is taking pride in your sexuality, right? Whether you're gay, trans, whatever. Fly your flags. Let them know, like, I'm not afraid to be this. This is who I am, and I'm gonna accept who I am, and I'm gonna do it publicly and openly. But I'm sorry, leading around a guy put in a dog costume with little to nothing on is not Pride. That's just showing off a kink, and it's absolutely disgusting to do in public. I'm sorry, but when there's kids around, that's an absolutely disgusting thing to do. To just disregard the fact that many other citizens could be there with kids, just walking around, not even noticing, not even know what's going on there. If they're not interested in Pride events, they could just be downtown at that time point. So I just think that kink shouldn't be anywhere, and that's including Mardi Gras, Halloween, or whatever else you want to bring it up.
Okay, next is going to be American Nacho.
Yeah. So, this is, I've talked about this so much, so pardon if I'm just exhausted. I don't have any problem with people like expressing themselves. I think, freedom and justice are kind of like they're like artificial projects of like a long, painful like social experiment or experience. I mean, and it's the results of like trial and reflection and sacrifice. We've had to go through a lot of shit, okay, for people to be like accepted at LGBTQ. If these are things where like people are like protecting these people and you're letting people walk around in like thongs in front of like little children, yeah, sure, like kick those people out. From my understanding, from what I've talked to people, there are some places that that have more of that going on, but for the most part, everything that I've seen as far as like the super like BDSM or the super kink stuff is happening like not in America. So if we're sorry, somebody's doing stuff on my channel. I'm distracted. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with like people having kinks. I don't know if it's the right place for them to be at Pride. I don't know. I don't understand I've never heard of anybody being like repressed or oppressed because of their kinks. I think pride is like a special thing in relation to like the LGBTQ community, and that it really doesn't make sense to me why anyone would go over the top to like defend anything that's already against the law in the country anyway. So that's really it.
Okay, next is going to be Layman.
Sure. So here's my position. So I think that if kink is an inherently sexual expression, then people should not be allowed to engage in this without the informed consent of other people. So I think it's pretty agreeable. I think everyone will agree with that. And I think kink, by every reasonable definition, is a sexual expression. And because of that, people should not be allowed to engage in kink without the informed consent of others. Now, of course, for adults, it's a very easy workaround. Like if you're going to Pride and you want to show this at Pride, you would just simply advertise that will be at the event. And bam, the problem is solved. But I think the issue here and what started this whole discourse was unfortunately a sort of 4chan psyop, from what I understand. And there was an image shown of a child with a LGBT flag and a dude in a fucking gimp suit with a dog collar and everything on all fours and shit. And the kid's like, yo, what's up, gimp dude? And the gimp dude's like, hello, child, or whatever. And that was a photo that apparently was not at an LGBT Pride event. It was apparently from somewhere else, and it was just a bunch of 4chan fucking people who wanted to make LGBT people, from what I understand, look like, degenerates and all that shit. And I think that the reason for it was basically to get everybody to infight about this and to revolve this discussion around kids. So what I've seen a lot of is people talking about this when it comes to kids. So from what I understand, and this is how I feel about this, I think the problem is, like, we should allow, as Josie said earlier, LGBT children to participate in a Pride event. And so I think that if kink is a sort of like inherently sexual expression, children should not be exposed to adults in kink because children cannot give informed consent. And because of that, children should not be exposed to other adults in kink. So my workaround for that would just have a day event, Pride during the day. You don't allow such expressions. And if people want to do this at Pride, you can have like a private 18+ event after where they're free to express that all they like. And from what I understand, that's kind of common standard practice at Pride events anyway, from what other people have told me. So I don't think that should be too controversial of a take. I think the interesting conversation is how do we actually spot people and spot like whether or not somebody is doing something because they have a kink towards that thing or whatever. I think that's the interesting part of the conversation, because you have to be able to actually figure out which expressions at a Pride event you could reasonably infer are like expressions of kink and which ones aren't. And that's the line that I think is productive to try and draw and is where the discussion should go if we're actually going to get anything productive out of this. So that's how I feel.
Okay, next we're going to throw it over to Hutch.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned the fact that the picture in question, there was no confirmation whatsoever that this took place at a Pride event. And just to go back, touch on what Josie was talking about, it is kind of shitty that instead of discussing the importance of Pride and how much of a positive impact it has on young queer people, first of all, I just want to say about, cis heterosexual male, so you're going to want to listen to what who's never been to a Pride event, so you're going to want to listen very closely to what I have to say about this. But I did a little research, so I made sure I did my homework, and it seems like we already have junior Pride events. I think that's a thing, right? So if there was an instance where a parent brought their child in a certain area of any kind of event where explicit sexual acts were being put on display, then isn't that more on the parent than it is on the organizers of the event? I just think that it's I do think it's kind of sad that this is the discussion that we're having. I also discovered by doing a little homework for this topic that this is something that comes up actually every year in certain circles. And it's all too often in this country, when we talk about queer people, trans people, gay people in this country, it's always framed around it's always positioned within this framework of think of the kids. So like when it came to gay marriage, for example, a lot of people oppose gay marriage overtly because they said, well, if we allow gay people to marry each other, what's to stop people from marrying a child or engage in bestiality or whatever. And the fact that we don't even have confirmation that this was at a Pride event, or if Layman if what he said is correct, that it's confirmed that it wasn't at a Pride event, just
was at
renders this
Folsom.
whole.
That's what I've heard. I heard that it was at like a separate, like it was like a BDSM event or something that had nothing to do with Pride. That's what I heard.
Folsom.
I don't know. Okay,
So
Dylan confirmed it.
If a parent brought their kid to a Folsom Street parade, obviously that parent, I think, at the very least, you could say is questionable. But I don't think you can say that we need to have a conversation about how to restructure and reorganize Pride events because of a picture posted on 4chan proposing or claiming to be from Pride, but it's really not. So yeah, I'll just let this discussion go where it goes. Yeah.
Okay. Next is going to be CounterPoints.
Yep. So crazy simple solution. During the daytime, events should be rated PG to PG-13 from 7 a.m. till I don't know 5 to 7 p.m. and then 7 p.m. onwards you can push it into PG-13, and then after 9 p.m. you can do the R and fucking X-rated shit. I would say anything that's R or X-rated, basically same thing for the straights. Should probably be at a like a private event, something that people have to have some level of knowledge for before they enter into it. That way they're not doing it. And I'm going to quote known social conservative philosopher Vosh. So basically the point of this entire discussion is to expand access to LGBTQ youth, to basically allow teenagers or young adults or young, basically kids who might be LGBTQ or questioning, to be able to enter that into a safe space. And we were even talking about that. My wife and I were talking about that. My kid is so far pretty cis het and probably straight based off of what we see so far. He likes to take baby dolls and use them as hammers. So I can't think of anything more intense than that. But basically, if he were gay and we were to take him to Pride, if we saw something extreme, would that make us uncomfortable? And the unequivocal answer was yes. And would we allow him to participate after that? And the answer is no. So that's kind of where we were at conversationally. And she's a fucking lib progressive lunatic. So that's how people feel, or that's how we feel in my household anyways. So the final point is that just because I feel this way, just because I think that there's a difference between sexual identity and sexual expression, and that sexuality should be basically age gated and sexual expression shouldn't be age gated. The final point is that doesn't mean oftentimes I'm accused of being more centrist or moderate because I don't hate the gay or the trans folk. I'll go ahead and extend that a little bit further now. There's a charity in my area called the Zebra Coalition. They're local. The Governor DeSantis basically vetoed their public funding for housing for LGBTQ youth. It's kind of a big deal because it was one of the first times that Florida was actually going to publicly fund funding for homelessness for LGBTQ youth. So if you were interested in basically helping LGBTQ youth, then you can basically Google Zebra Coalition in Central Florida and basically donate to a good cause, because they are still trying to buy a motel, like a older motel, update it, turn it into decent housing for people who are basically disowned by their families. So if that interests you at all, then we actually know some of the organizers. They're good people, and you should consider that. Yield.
Okay, next is going to be Katerina.
Yeah, so I'm a anti-kink at Pride, but for different reasons, and more because I see Pride as a place in which people that have been historically oppressed can go ahead and I guess just express like, hey, I'm actually proud to be this. Last time I heard, Christian Grey smanging it in his fucking red room wasn't really being oppressed for it, so I just don't really see it as being like an oppressed group of people. It's like, to me, it would be the equivalent of having essentially like straight pride, like, congrats, yes, I'm proud of you, you can have sex in whatever way you want. Also, somebody had made a point about like kink in general being something that shouldn't be allowed outside. There are kink of nylons, so I don't know how you're planning on going ahead and policing people with pregnancy kinks and people that really like stockings, but good luck with that. But yeah, overall, it's just more of the, I don't care if it's like something that's done just as like an accommodation, but I just don't feel like it should be featured front and center on the basis of it's just, I've never It's not a press group to me. It's not a historically a press group to me.
Okay, and now we're gonna throw it over to Denims.
All right, buddy. Okay, pal. Okay, so I had a couple of things. There were a lot of people who talked. So, I feel like it's a little bit asinine for people to talk about it who have never gone and never plan to go. Like, yeah, I feel like most of the people here haven't gone, and that's why the kink discourse has exploded to what it has become. Because it's like if you went, you would realize like you're creating solutions to things that have existed as solutions for forever. And I've seen a lot of people be like, "Well, I came up with the perfect solution. We'll put the kids in one place and the adults in one place." It's like, yeah, if you went, this is already already happening. We don't need you to come up with a solution for this. And then I would say I wanted to agree with Hutch quickly when he was talking about like the whole like think of the kids argument, because like this was used for gay people just existing in places. It's like, oh God, we've got like a gay movie star. Oh no, what's gonna happen? And I mean, like you can go back further. The same thing with segregation. Whoa, we're gonna have black kids and white kids in the same room. What if like the quality of the children's lives degrades? And it's like, oh, okay, cool. That's not what's gonna happen. And then also, since I'm like, I think I'm the last person to do the introduction, I kind of wanted to throw it over to Sprouticus, because you said that you didn't want any kinks at Pride at all, and you think that like Pride is okay, but you just don't want like Mardi Gras, all of this stuff. I just feel like that is counter to believing in like freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Like if someone wants to, wear a bikini and just walk down the middle of the road, I don't see any problem with that. It's their freedom to express themselves that way.
So you're
Well,
coming. So I love how my argument has been equivalently diminished to bikinis and what was it, Katarina? What'd you diminish my argument to? I completely forgot because I was caught so off guard by the bikinis. But my argument has been diminished down
Pregnancy
to
and nylons.
oh yeah,
but
pregnancy. You're right. So so I'm telling everyone to keep shoes on because people have foot fetishes. That's what I'm doing over here. That's my argument.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm sorry. Did you specify that when you were explaining?
I
Because
didn't think it needed specification that
Uh,
you should have your shoes on at all times. I think it's pretty obvious which kinks are okay in public and which ones aren't.
what's the difference
What do you
between
do at the
somebody getting their
beach?
rocks off when they see me wearing tights and somebody getting their rocks off because I'm showing my little
I
piggies?
think I would like
I
to answer this for him just so it doesn't derail like crazy. So I think that the
people
think
are
that
here for the derailment, bud.
well, fuck off, Connor. Fuck you. Okay. So I think that the difference is that with something like wearing tights or something like if you're at this is a common example I hear, not anything that anyone said in the panel, but like if you're at the beach in a bikini or something like that, I think the difference is that these are things where there's a lot of reasonable expectations that you can place onto those things that aren't like inherently sexual. Like it's possible they could be wearing these things for sexual reasons, but I don't think it's reasonable to like infer that they're doing that in common like everyday society. Whereas somebody wearing like a full body like gimp suit or something like that, they're probably trying to do a sexual expression. Like
Yeah,
it's
but-
probably more reasonable to infer that. I
But
would
why
say.
is that important?
Fun
Like,
fact, though, he said
In front of
all
kids?
and not specific. So
Okay,
when you
let-
say
okay,
all, I
okay,
can go up
Katarina.
and look up
Okay,
the
Katarina,
pregnancy one.
let me
What is up with
ease
conservatives and
your mind.
mispronouncing my name? Is
I don't
there
know.
just
Well, how do you pronounce your name?
syllables?
How do you pronounce your name? Tell me.
That's irrelevant.
Hey,
Just
I said it right.
Wait,
okay?
wait. Just to be clear, can we all hear it so I don't?
It's
feel like I'm a
Katarina,
dumbass.
but if you're gonna fuck it up, just say Katarina at least. Like it's like I'm hearing
Wait,
like
say it one more time.
Katarina, and I'm
Oh,
like,
never
ugh.
mind. I didn't pronounce it right.
look,
Hey,
Dylan
don't
Burns
oppress
mispronounces
white
everything.
people and our
so-
accents, Katarana.
Okay, so
Katarina.
let me ease your mind, Katarana. Okay, let me ease your mind. All right. So I'm talking about the explicit sexual expressions that can leave a kid wondering, asking questions that they aren't ready for. Kids are impressionable. It's sexual in nature. is what I'm referring to. Wearing sandals is not sexual in nature. Seeing a pregnant woman is not sexual in nature. And to diminish my argument to that, I feel is a little bit bad faith. And it's just asinine that you're just sitting here and diminish my argument to that. I've never had that happen before, and I've argued this 3 or 4 times before, and no one's been like, "Oh, so you're afraid of pregnant women going out in public?" Like that's asinine.
I
Like a
clearly,
better version of this.
I was just trying to say that when you say all, it's really stupid. So next time, just like maybe specify it better because you said all. So in which case, I can go ahead and get nitpicky because you said all. But I also just don't
We're arguing
understand this.
semantics, not the actual.
Can I elicit a concern, just so we can have something to work with? So
I was right about to get to one.
Oh, sorry.
Cool. Yeah. So I just what is the age that you think that people are going to Pride when we're saying the whole idea of like, oh, you don't want kids to be exposed to this kind of thing? What age do you think people are going to Pride and like being cognizant of the fact that I'm here to learn something?
It's in public. I don't care what age they're going to Pride. It's in public. You can go to your grocery store and accidentally walk into a Pride parade. Like it's in public, right? It's down the streets.
Don't people that go to Pride events know what the fuck is up? Like, isn't
Yeah,
that like,
also-
Unless you don't know what the fuck is up, Hutch. Not everyone knows what the fuck is up
Okay,
with Pride
so
events.
most things that people wear at Pride just naturally are things that I couldn't just go to, like, you know, my local 5-class restaurant wearing, or the grocery store even. So there is a kind of like shifted amount of like what you're expected to be allowed to do at Pride versus going, I don't know, to McDonald's. So if we want to make the idea of like it's at public, like great, but like it's pretty well known that if you're at a Pride parade, you're going to be seeing things that you're not used to just seeing every single day. So then my question still stands. Now that people, you know, take their kids to Pride and they know that their kids are going to see things that are different than usual, that are not kink, what age do you expect? What age are we trying
What if
to?
I don't take my kids
But
to
it
Pride?
should be. It
What if I'm
shouldn't
going
matter
to the fucking
to some
grocery
degree.
store?
Okay, but to some degree he's right though, because it shouldn't matter like what age the kids are that are going, because there should be a part of the event that is family friendly. Like it would be not like.
But that was
it would be
already
nice to be
pointed out
driving
at
down
the
the
front of
wait,
it.
driving
Let him
down the-
finish.
Okay, that's fair. I'm just saying, like, it would be nice to be like driving down the fucking road. Your kid looks out the window and they're like, "Hey, mommy, daddy, what are those like? What are all those rainbow flags over there? What's going on over there?" And then you could just pull over, you just park, and just be like, "Let's go walk. Let's go find out. Let's go walk around," and then you can show them whatever. Like there should be a portion of it that is like family friendly to all. And I know that that's how a lot of them are, and it is unfortunate that there are people who are trying to kind of like smear campaign against the Pride events by posting one picture of some LGBT or some other. It was like a BDSM event or something else like that,
Wholesome
and they're running it
leather
like that.
fest.
So
Okay.
sure, yeah, whatever it was, yeah.
We're now gonna throw it over to Layman, then Josie Rose.
Yeah, so I think that the concern from people who are sort of on like the anti side in the context of this discourse and this shitty 4chan psyop bullshit that shouldn't have happened, the concern seems to be that the concern that people have is whether or not children are being exposed to adults at Pride and they are doing my wording is fucked today. They are doing sexual expressions that are not being done so with the informed consent of the other person, and children cannot give informed consent, and that is why people are sort of freaking out about this. So like for me, the solution is just to tell people that that's not how Pride events are. But I don't understand why we're doing this thing where we're like, oh, if someone takes their kid to Pride and they're confused, and how do we police this and that, just seems kind of irrelevant to me. Like, I don't know why we're having that conversation.
I mean, it feels like a lot of people disagree with the question. A lot of people are like, "This doesn't happen." So, like, I feel like we've gone around the panel and everyone's kind of like, "This doesn't happen," etc., and so on. So, I mean, we can disagree with the question, but we're also debating kink at Pride. So, you can disagree whether there is kink at Pride or there isn't kink at Pride in public, right? But that's what we're debating. We're not. You guys are like, kink doesn't happen at Pride. Okay, the question was kink at Pride. Okay, so that is the basis of the argument, and not. I'm sorry.
I'm signaling to somebody else. Don't worry.
Okay, that's the base. That's the basis of what we're debating on, right?
Josie,
I feel like
Rose
that's
was
been lost.
next.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that, Sprouticus, because I'm about to ask the question really quick to the whole panel. Give me a show of hands. Who thinks that this is actually a problem right now, currently in status quo?
When you say that, do you mean that it's actually happening at Pride events, or?
Yeah, like I want to know like the idea. So CounterPoints and Sprouticus and American Nacho. Okay, great. Now I kind of okay. So now I have another follow-up question, and it just really quick. It doesn't have to be a lot. CounterPoints. How many prides have you been to?
0.
Okay, American
not
Nacho.
relevant.
How many prides have you been to?
2, but they're
2.
really
And
small.
did
I'm in a
you
small town.
Did you see a problem with Kink at Pride?
Didn't see
Okay.
anything, but
Sprouticus. How many prides have you been to?
It wasn't Pride, but I accidentally walked into a Folsom Street Fair. So
Okay, that's not Pride.
yeah, I know
Okay,
it's not Pride. I
so-
started off saying that it's not Pride. I started that
So
off by saying that.
okay, so everybody else that doesn't think this is a problem, how many of you have attended to at least one or plus prides?
I
Like,
haven't
so-
gone to
so-
Pride.
You haven't gone to Pride, but you don't think
I
it's a
pl-
problem? Denims?
Well, no,
Okay.
no. So I'm going off of what I know from people I know who like organize events and
Okay.
stuff, that they try to separate these things. That's anecdotal,
Okay.
but that's. I
Perfect.
mean, this is all anecdotal.
So
but
here's
yeah.
my greater point. Here's the greater point that I'm about to make. The people who think that this is a problem have never been to Pride or have been twice themselves. Sorry, American Nacho, to call you out that way. And hasn't seen this as a problem. Thus, why the hand went wavy as far as, is this a problem? Because when you experience Pride, you realize very quickly that this isn't a problem. So going back to the points that have already been made on this panel, the people who are arguing to get rid of Kink at Pride are the people who never even been to Pride in the first place to understand
Josie-
that this is a completely non-issue.
Yeah, Josie,
it's
my
not.
problem with this is my problem with this framing though is that like just because someone hasn't been to Pride doesn't mean that they can't like learn about it or learn about what it is or what might be happening, and it doesn't mean that they don't have concerns about it if they are to feel like they should go to it in the future, or if we want it to allow people to feel more comfortable in going to it in the future. So, and this sort of like anecdotal thing, I just don't really think is helpful for the conversation either.
Wait,
Okay.
wait.
I'm going to
can
concede
I
my
just wanna,
time to
Wait.
Denims.
I just want to chip in
Okay.
really quickly. This
Then
seems
Hutch.
like a very strange argument to make that like, well, we should let people debate on whether or not something should be at a festival I don't go to, and maybe we'll go to. It's like, why would we make people? Why are people who don't even go to
Well,
that don't go to
be-
these events decide? It would be like
Because I feel like a good idea would be to have as many people want to go to the event as possible so they can learn more about LGBT
and you think
stuff,
talking
right?
about like the
That
Kink
would
at
be a good
Pride
thing.
discourse would cause people to like go to
Well, I'm not the
Pride?
one who decided to have the Kink at Pride discourse, but I
maybe-
feel like if we're here talking about it, we
Well, I
should
mean,
probably
I'm
do
just
that,
attacking
right?
the argument that you're making. That's
Yeah,
not
so
the fact that
maybe
we're
the-
having this conversation.
Maybe, yeah, because then people can realize that maybe this isn't such a big issue, and then they can feel comfortable going to the. You
Yeah,
know what
like
I
if
mean?
this is to
then maybe it's
grow,
been
yeah.
demonized by
Guys.
other. So I think it is a good conversation to have. Yeah.
Guys,
think most
guys,
people
guys,
know.
and pals.
Okay, I'm throwing it over to Hutch. Hutch just waited for a while. Cat girl, or vote your name down.
Just as like, I don't know if this is a troll, but like the idea that you couldn't explain. Look, I don't necessarily think that like if there are explicit sexual acts going on, I don't think like small children or even like any kind of children should be a part of that. It does damage, obviously, but it seems like this entire conversation, the entire discourse primarily comes from a bunch of straight people who have never been to Pride trying to sanitize an event that they have no intent of going to anyways. And if we're going to get into the fucking nitty gritty of this, it seems like it'd be pretty easy to explain to a kid who saw like a leather daddy or something like that. Like when I was a kid, I was dressing up like Wolverine for fun because it was fun. So like, why wouldn't it? I'm not a parent. So if there are parents in the chat can explain this to me, or in this call can explain it to me, why would it be difficult to explain like, oh yeah, they're dressing up like that because that's fun for them.
Can I just say something? Another anecdote. I know we're throwing around the anecdotes a lot tonight, but I actually am going to Pride. I'm going to Pride in August for the first time in my life, and I was sort of like I'm not really, and this is just a personal thing with me. I'm not imposing this on other people, but just like I'm personally not comfortable being around other people displaying like sexual acts in public, and I knew a lot of people personally. Again, I've seen a lot of people just. This discourse thing is happening on fucking Twitter. This is something that lives on Twitter. We all know this. And And I think it's a good thing to separate what actually happens in real life from what's happening on Twitter and all that shit, right? But, you know, someone who's not been really keen on this, I've seen like a lot of people saying that like, oh yeah, the picture of the fucking kid wearing the gimp suit and shit is fine. And I don't like that people are saying that that image that was going around was fine. And that was giving me more of antipathy towards it. Now I saw a lot of people, a lot of progressive people arguing against this stuff, clarifying misconceptions about this stuff as the, you could say, propaganda spread. And I was like, okay, like this isn't something that happens at Pride events. And now I'm going to go to my local fucking Pride event. And I have no doubt in my mind that this happens to other people too, because people are always locked in their motivated reasoning and they need to be able to have their concerns eased so they can feel comfortable going to places.
Can we just get
Wait, I have to say something.
Okay.
I've got a question
Sure.
for the panel.
Okay, wait. Okay, multiple people are trying to talk at the same time. Obviously, that isn't going to work. I'm going to throw it to Denims, and we're going to go down the list because we have 3 people on the list. I got you. Don't worry.
Okay, just literally 2 seconds. Layman, can I ask how old you are? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm 25 years old. Yeah.
So you're telling me up until the point that you were 25, you had not known about children petting men in fur suits or gimp suits, and that's what stopped you from going to Pride? Something you had no idea about?
No,
I'm just confused.
I'm just going. Yeah. So I'll clarify. Like, I was just going off of things that I heard colloquially throughout my life. Some people said that there was like kink at these events and stuff, and that just made me a little uncomfortable. But I wasn't sure. But I wasn't sure what the prevalence of this was at these events. So I was like, it was just something that I put on the back burner. I wasn't like telling people, don't go to Pride. There's people in fucking gimp suits walking around in every fucking street.
Yeah, no, I got you. I was confused. That makes way more sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So sorry if I wasn't particularly clear.
Okay.
Can we get some clarification? Can we get some clarification? Go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. Do it quick, but then we got to go to the list.
Can we get some clarification into the origins of Pride? Isn't the origins of Pride rooted in the fact that society deemed this particular sexual act, homosexual act, or queer acts to be dirty and gross, and then the entire point of the movement was to celebrate these things that aren't inherently gross and to push back against that narrative. But the point I'm trying to make is, hasn't Pride always been inherently sexual? Hasn't it been always
sexual identity?
Well, hold on. Okay. It feels like there's a conflation here. It feels like there's a conflation between like sexuality, like sexual orientation, and just being sexual. I don't think those are the same thing.
They're not.
Yeah. Because it's always been about sexual orientation.
Didn't answer that. Like, I'm genuinely ignorant. So somebody answer this for me. Isn't the point of these events to sexual to some degree? Sexuality is got to be a part of Pride.
It is. Yeah. Go ahead.
Say sexual, I want to understand the question. When you say sexual, do you mean hasn't kink always been at Pride, or are you saying like these events are inherently about a sexual nature?
I think the latter. The latter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The answer. Go ahead, Dylan. I'm sorry. He asked a direct question, so I'll let you go to the list. I apologize. I'm walking over you. Yeah.
We're gonna go over to Connor.
Oh, holy shit. Okay. So basically this is kind of the thing is like, I don't give a fuck. Y'all figure it out. And we talk about all sorts of shit that I don't think other motherfuckers are qualified to talk about. We talk about military, we talk about law enforcement, we talk about police reform. And sometimes I do this dick move, and I'm sorry, because I've done it to people in this room where I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm a cop. You don't know what the streets are like. And you just did it to me, and I fucking hated it. But that being said, I think there's a principled argument here, because what's really going on, and I guess what's making me uncomfortable, and what was making me uncomfortable with the discourse on Twitter.com was this door opening where we were saying like, okay, well, we have LGBTQ youth, we have teenagers who are LGBTQ, we have parents who are trying to understand what this is, and they might want to come to these events as a way to basically understand more. And if they show up to a Pride event and there's 2 dudes in fucking dog suits fucking jamming their hands down each other's pants, then that's not going to be something that they're going to want. Okay, I see you, Josie. It doesn't happen. Good. Fucking awesome. So then what I want to do is I want to relentlessly bully the 5 to 10% of people on twitter.com who are saying, if a 9-year-old saw 2 dudes in gimp suits jerking each other off, is that such a big deal? So if we just want to concede that Pride doesn't have this problem, or it's already segmented and we deal with it in real life, informed consent is already a thing, we already segment things, reality doesn't match up with the propaganda, that's totally fine.
Yes.
What I do want some concession on, or some fucking some wheels to spin, is instead of when like Sprouticus or me, the boring fucking fogey straight guys are like, hey, I don't want fucking dudes jerking off in front of kids. We don't say like, hey, here's this like 10-head fucking philosophical fucking argument about how maybe it's not that big of a deal. Have you heard that people jerk off to pregnant ladies? Have you heard that people jerk off to stockings? Have you heard that Pride used to be inherently sexual because it was deemed deviant? So maybe like it should always be sexual, and kids should just grow the fuck up? Because that's what we're talking about. We might be having 2 separate conversations right now. Should the straights be able to police the gays? Maybe that's one argument. And then the separate argument is, should people be doing sexual shit in front of kids? And those are 2 arguments that we're kind of talking past each other on, because you're saying the straights shouldn't police my behavior, and I'm saying the gays shouldn't be jerking off in front of kids. And then maybe we can meet in the middle somewhere, because I feel like those are both relatively unobjectionable fucking comments. And by the way, the straights shouldn't be jerking off in front of kids too, in case that wasn't clear. All right, so nobody should be jerking off in front of kids.
Based.
Denims, it looks like you wanted to respond to that. Then we're gonna go to Sprouticus.
Denims, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry.
As much as I enjoyed that, you must
because I'm
unmute.
not a filthy animal. I know that Sporticus wanted to go next, so he can go ahead. But I do want to respond to counterpoints.
Okay, Sporticus.
Okay. I'm gonna go much farther than I probably should, and chat's gonna hate me for it. So you guys stay. It's not gonna get you yeeted, Dylan. It's not TOS. It's just I'm going to take this to an exaggerated extent to prove a point. Either way, so quick question to the panel by a show of hands. I don't want people to go nuts on me because I asked this. Do you agree with public executions? Yes or no?
Oh shit, I actually do. Yeah.
Yes, do? Okay. Right. So for the people who say no, raise your hands.
Connor, you fucking
Okay.
lunatic.
Okay.
Hey,
whatever. So the next question following that is, who here would not have any intent of going to one of those events? Should it exist? Who here would have zero intent?
You mean
of going?
if, just to clarify, Sprouticus, you mean if there were children interacting with dudes in gimp suits and shit, I would not want to go? Is that what you're asking?
No. So the question is, who here would have zero intent of going to see a public execution?
Oh, I would not want to see that.
Zero intent.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
no,
Okay.
thanks.
Okay.
Serious? I don't
might
know.
go.
So,
might go.
but to accidentally find yourself there because you didn't know what was going on, because you don't follow that kind of thing, to accidentally find yourself there and to be scarred can be something to worry about. Yes.
Yeah.
I guess,
False
yeah.
analogy.
I think that, yeah. I don't think it's Sprouticus. Look, I think I'm more on your side with this. I think I'm kind of in the middle, I guess.
How many
Everybody.
things are you
But-
accidentally walking into? That's what I want.
Well, no. What I want? No.
So
I
I'm
just my problem is
I'm
my
just saying
problem is
I'm saying there's people that go out in public, right? There's people that go out in public that have no idea this is there. And what I'm saying is, Kink isn't there. That's fine. But to back what I'm saying, and what I'm saying is that I don't think it should exist. And if it doesn't, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
but I'm
right.
backing my point by going exaggerated lengths to get you guys to understand it, because evidently people can't understand it.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's analogous, because a decapitation isn't a sexual act.
I understand
Right.
that. No, but
Right.
it still scar you. It still scar
Shut
you,
the
right?
fuck up, Connor. You necrophiliac fuck, you sycophant.
You
Anyway,
deviant.
you deviant, you degenerate. Anyway,
What a live leak, you weirdo.
Listen, it was just a sorry.
Enough.
My 2007 Xbox gamer guy is coming out. I'm sorry.
So all I'm saying is that you could accidentally find yourself there and end up scarred because you ended up seeing that, even though you had no intention of being there, no intention of going to one. right? That case can be made, correct?
Yeah.
I guess so, man.
So by a show of hands, can that case be made? Someone can end up scarred because they
I'm
didn't
sorry,
intend, they
we
didn't
can
intend
really
to be
make
there.
this. This is an awful analogy. Do you
Yeah.
think people should take a shit in public? No, but what if you accidentally ran across someone taking a shit in public? Like,
So, no,
is
it's
that
not,
is that
so
a
it's
problem?
not-
No
Like,
shit
what?
in public, you fucking lunatic.
I mean, yeah. To be
What?
totally
Okay,
honest,
okay. Again, my argument is being brought.
Wait. Okay.
It's these
Yeah.
disingenuous takes that's annoying.
When I'm talking, nobody else is talking. Okay, I know my mic might be a little fidgety right now. I'm screwing with it, but let's stick to that rule. Okay. So Sprouticus, you can propose this question one more time, but then we're moving on to the next topic. Okay.
Okay, I would like it to be addressed. But so, can someone accidentally find themselves there who had no idea it was there and find themselves scarred? For the people who say yes, raise your hands. That someone
they
can't.
can?
They can.
Like-
So for someone. So listen. No one else talk. Show of hands.
For mass
Okay, so I'm
execution.
not
Yeah, are you
gonna
talking about the
disingenuous
execution or
take.
pride?
Okay. I will make my question extremely clear because pride wasn't ever in my question. For a public execution, could someone accidentally say there's no bars, there's no ribbon being held up that says don't go past this point unless you want to go see a public execution? Can someone accidentally find themselves there and be scarred? Is that a possibility? Raise your hand if you say yes.
Somebody
it's a possibility.
can. Yes.
Yes.
Anything's
Someone
possible. Yeah. Sure.
Can.
Okay.
But-
So I rest my case at that point. Someone can
No.
do that, and so no, stop. And so I'm not
Bro,
saying it
this
happens,
is-
Josie. I'm not saying it happens, Josie. I'm not saying it happens at LGBT events.
Oh my God.
But somebody can. It can happen if it was there, right? So I'm not saying it is at LGBT events, but if it was there, to back my original point, that was what I was originally arguing. That was the mindset I'm originally arguing from. It's for kids.
I think if
Okay.
this country was dealing with public educations, we'd have a lot different universe and a completely different set of rules. So I refuse to live in your hypothetical universe, sir.
I
Okay.
rest my case.
Wait. Okay. Going to Cat Girl. Well, I'll let Denims go, and then we got to close it out.
Yeah, I don't know. This is all just really, really stupid. Like, okay, like I don't know what you think that younger kids and sure, like 5-year-olds, whatever. But like, let's talk about our time on wonderful sites like Omegle. Accidentally having someone flash your dick at you is like, okay.
Yeah, that
What if
shouldn't
I?
be allowed, yeah.
Yeah, that should be allowed. I didn't say it should be allowed.
No, I know you didn't. I was just trying to add to what you were saying. I'm sorry
Yeah.
if it sounded like I was arguing with you.
Oh, okay, yeah, and then or going on a Omegle and suddenly coming across someone that kills themselves on Omegle. Very different things. The amount of therapy bills I'm gonna need after one over the other, very different. So the equivalency that you're making right now is
I started this off
special.
by saying it wasn't equal.
Yeah.
I literally
Just-
started off the statement saying it wasn't equal.
Okay,
I was
how about-
exaggerating.
How
Bringing it
about
up.
how about the point is bad analogy, 0 out of 10, more
It's
books
not 0 out of 10.
prescribed.
It proves my point. And so what I'm saying is that that I'm exaggerating.
I'm sorry. Do you want the
so-
baton again? Like, do you want to just like continue?
No, I got interrupted
Oh
by
my
you.
God.
I got interrupted by you, so I don't really want to hear. Do you want the baton again? Okay.
You said you rested your case.
From this, no, but
She
from
didn't
this.
interrupt you.
Okay, she did when I was talking. She did, Nacho.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and
Let me
go
be
back
clear.
and watch the
This
pod.
is the
Okay.
last time you're gonna be able to speak. Okay. Because we got to move on to the next topic.
Okay, I'd like to actually talk to people who are addressing me. But I started off by saying that I was exaggerating to make a point. This happens all the time, and I don't know why you guys are so flabbergasted. Like, it's not equal, it's not equal, it's not equal. I started off by saying I was exaggerating to make my point. I used something that was obvious that you guys were going to concede to, that this would scar you, right, if you accidentally saw it. Correct? So I used something that was obvious to bring it back and say, for kids, this could scar kids. Should it be at an LGBT event? Not that it is, but should it be there? As the conversation we're having is, should kink be a discourse? So should it be there? Then I say it shouldn't be there. And whether or not it's there, like if it's not there, then I don't even know why we're even talking about this if it's not there. But should it be there? That was my point, and that's what you guys are failing to miss.
Yeah. The problem, Sprouticus, is just that it's not analogous. That's the problem.
I want to say something. I've been waiting a long time. Sorry.
Okay.
I want to be a person who engages with this framework. Let's say, yes, sure, beheadings are bad. You don't want to see them or you don't want to walk into them. Let's engage with the framework for just 2 seconds, please.
Okay.
You have to prove, you can't say I rest my case. You have to prove that children seeing men in leather will scar them. And you are going to have a very hard time proving seeing a guy in all leather is going to scar this child. And no one is engaging with this for some reason. Like, yes, ignore the analogy problem.
Okay. We're done. Wonderful. Josie Rose is going to go first. Everybody has a minute, okay? Josie Rose, you can begin.
Okay. As you can see, I'm going to stand by the point that I made earlier today that this discourse is being primarily held by hetero people. No offense to being straight. No shade at being straight. I understand. But I just get annoyed. All right. But what we're starting to see is what I was saying from the beginning is like this discourse is being done by people who don't know what pride is, and also going on to CounterPoints. I think you should burn the Bird app to the ground because it's not helping anything. You have both sides at the most extreme sides arguing, and then you have people saying that's the discourse. And that shouldn't be the discourse. And so, like I said from the beginning of this conversation, is that it's a shame that the discourse isn't about how amazing it is to be queer in this country. Well, it's not, but it needs to be better. But we still need to celebrate and say, this is what Pride is all about. And this isn't about kink at Pride. This is about people loving each other. And I ask in the next minute when all of you speak to like the people who don't have experience at Pride to reconsider your position to show that this isn't a problem and the people who have been doing Pride for decades are doing a great job.
Okay, next is going to be Sprouticus.
So whether or not Kink's at Pride or not right now, the discussion is should Kink be at Pride. I'm going to say no. And my arguments have consistently been degraded down to the most simplest thing. I'm not talking about just people in leather. Okay, motorcyclists wear leather all the time, so I'm not talking about just people in leather. For my point to be degraded to that is disingenuous to say the least. But Pride should not include Kink. And since Josie, who has much more experience in Pride than I do, says that Kink is not a part of Pride, at least for the public part of it, maybe the 18 plus after party, maybe it is. Then I don't even know what we're talking about. Okay, it's not there. But my argument remains the same. I do not think Kink should be at Pride. I do not think Kink should be at the Mardi Gras. And I don't think Kink should be at Halloween when it's out open in public where kids can be there. So there you go.
Okay, next is going to be American Nacho.
Okay, so since everyone was bringing up the anecdotes, I never got to bring up my little anecdote. Even though I've been like twice, I'm in a really small town, and it's like pretty red state. Nothing really serious is gonna happen. A lot of the time, like nudity and stuff, public displays of sexual acts or whatever are like pretty much universally against the law in like all the states. I work with a guy. He's a color guard instructor. Me and my wife help. We teach the band at the high school we graduated. So he is like the most extra gay guy, and he's an awesome dude. He's a really awesome color guard instructor. He goes to these events like all around the country. He's like retired. So he has more experience, and I think he's helped put together some of these things. They do have their problems. They do have their problems that they have to deal with. But it's not like a majority thing, and I think we should keep it that way, and we should keep working at that. I think that's the main thing. The topic is, like, should it be at the Pride events? And I think generally it probably shouldn't if it's, like, explicitly sexual. If people are literally getting off with each other, like, walking down the street, you probably shouldn't be around kids. And just, I think you want straight people to feel, like, comfortable there, too, because someone might be raising a gay child, okay? Like the parents could be straight and they could have gay children or trans children, whatever. So you should want everybody to feel as comfortable as possible. And I think that's important. I think we should all just accept the fact that Kink is the hot tub streamers of the Pride events, and we should keep them in the 18 and up section, put them in their own category, and nobody's gonna give a shit. All right, that's my take.
Most base thing anyone's said so
That's
far.
Wonderful.
Very good sentiment.
We're throwing it over to Layman. Layman.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, the discourse in this conversation was a shit show. And I'm glad that it was. I'm happy that it was. Because that's just how it's been. It just needs to fucking die. And as long as people are just putting forward the idea that the events outside of how this is happening on the internet and stuff isn't actually how the events transpire in real life, then that's all I care about. And that's something that I do. That's something a lot of more like center left people I know, or more centrist-y people I know have done, and even some more like firmly progressive people have done too. And I think that that's a good thing. And that's all I really give a fuck about. So that's, yeah.
Wonderful. Now we're gonna go over to Denims.
Thanks, Dylan. So kind of you. So generous.
I know.
Yeah, I think the Kink at Pride discourse is a little bit stale. I think we're going around in circles. Also, it's actually very interesting how many different opinions there are on Kink on Pride. Like, should it exist? Does it exist? Well, if it does exist, how should we react to this? And there's yeses and nos on every single one. Yeah, that's thank you for having us on this great ride, Dylan, and everyone in chat. Remember to use your Prime subs. This is prime time to sub to Dylan. Okay, it's
We're
the
in
middle
marketplace of ideas, Denims.
Exactly.
There's another topic.
Listen, I said the middle of the stream. I'm aware that we still have one more topic.
Okay.
Don't worry.
For chat, there's another topic.
We're going over to Hutch.
This kind of reminds me of the discourse around like voter ID laws in response to the 2020 election, where people are sort of coming up with these solutions to problems that really don't exist. I'm just kind of taking everybody else's word who've been to Pride events, but it seems like the overwhelming consensus is that it's not the case that kids are just walking around at these Pride events while dudes are just jacking each other off. It doesn't seem like that's happening. And so, and I also need to point out the fact that we're having this conversation is basically because a picture was taken at a Folsom Street parade event or parade event, and it was presented as being at a Pride event, which means somebody deliberately misinformed people in order to steer this conversation precisely this way. And it seems to me that there's a significant portion, well, I don't know about significant, but there's enough people in this country that think that homosexual or queer visibility is a problem. And so they seek to remedy that problem by steering the discussion in a way that suggests that there's like rampant pedophilia or child abuse going on at these events, where there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of evidence that that's going on. So yeah, like discourse is fun and entertaining, and we all enjoy talking about these things because we all enjoy arguing with each other, but this is all very stupid, right? Like, this is all pretty fucking stupid, right? It feels like it. Anyways, that's it.
Wonderful. Now it's going to be counterpoints.
All right. So the straights shouldn't police what the gays do, and nobody should be jerking off in front of kids or doing explicitly sexual shit in front of kids. And we can argue about the nitty gritty. If Catalana wants to go downtown pregnant in nylons without telling anybody that it's because her boyfriend is up the road watching her, then maybe, as long as she's really subtle about it, I'm okay with it. But if it's like 10,000 pregnant women in thigh highs walking down the street, and there's just like all these like really horny dudes like walking behind him, just like leering at them, then I am not okay with these fetishes in public. So that's where I'm at. If we want to get away from the shittiness of the discourse, obviously Twitter was a fucking hellscape. I hope that this on like the third day of this discourse, I actually posted the meme of like I forget what Simpsons character is. I think it's like Ralph or some shit, where he's like crying, where he's like, "Please God, stop! He's already dead." And that's how I feel about this discourse. Like, I want it to end. I hope we can end it. It's been a fucking brutal ride. But if you want something productive, Google the Zebra Coalition. It's a Central Florida-based LGBTQ plus charity. They are trying to end LGBTQ plus homelessness in Central Florida. They kind of got gypped a little bit by the government, the Floridian government. So if you care about LGBTQ youth, then maybe consider giving them a shout out or giving some time or money or whatever you got. Yield.
I haven't heard that word in like 10 years. Gonna throw over to Cat Girl.
Yeah, honestly, like, who cares if they're there, like, in the literal sense? Like, if somebody's wearing anything that might be for sexual purposes, let's say some people come in like fur costume, kids are just gonna be like, oh, look, a dog. Anyways, also, like, there's a lot of TV shows that I was watching since I was like 10 that have like kind of alluding to kink, such as like Family Guy, and then, like, I was just like, okay, leather's nice. Okay. So
And look
either
at
like,
you came out fine.
you know, yeah, I think yeah. But hey, at the end of the day, like, these things don't really matter once you get to a certain age. When you understand it, that's at the age where you're looking at Pornhub anyway, so I don't really give two shits. But you know, obviously, like, the things that are more sexually explicit, like, you know, let's say fisting is my first base, but the state doesn't like that. Well, guess what? I can't do that in public, and I am very happy that that's, you know, the law. So we don't have to worry about those type of kinks. No one's gonna be bringing tentacles. No one's gonna be bringing anything crazy. There's no, you know, hardcore like electrocution going on, because like that's not legally appropriate, so it won't happen. The only thing where I say I don't approve, or like I don't really want it to be at kink, is just because, to me, once again, it's not an oppressed group, and pride is something which oppressed groups are saying, yay, we are able to not be killed anymore. And people that are like to be choked are like, the only thing that's been killing me is my choke fetish, so and like that's kind of the way I feel about that.
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
No,
so
no, it's over.
Is fisting not first base?
It is. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. We're wrapping this up and
My
moving on to the
America.
last topic.
That's my America.
I'm so disappointed in all of you. Now I'm going to have to shout out today's sponsor, which is all of you at home. We don't have a sponsor, so you will have to sponsor this show. Please donate, please sub, please drop a Twitch Prime if you can. I'd really appreciate it. Because if you don't, you're homophobic. Now we're gonna go into the last topic.
Bernie Sanders moment.
The last topic of the day is, should we be bipartisan? In the era of Trump, in the modern era of divisive politics, can we, number one, and should we? We're going to start in the bottom right-hand corner with CounterPoints.
Oh shit! I just assumed I was muted after that. So basically, yes, we should be bipartisan. Can we be partisan? Absolutely. So I know that 55% of the Republican Party is currently MAGA. I am not MAGA. That doesn't mean that, 35 to 45% of the Republican Party isn't nothing. There's also an entire third of the population of the United States that doesn't routinely vote. So there's a lot of politically disengaged folks that don't vote. And there's definitely a whole bunch of cross-partisan things that we could be doing. Just to toot my own moral superiority, despite identifying as a right-winger or a centrist, I am actually talking to my local sheriff about police reform, and already the municipality that I worked in started using field social workers. I'm going to be basically start getting in a meeting with the local sheriff in order to, and the old police department that I used to work at, in order to get them free, no cost to them, field social workers who will go on calls with law enforcement in order to reduce the potentials for violence. So I know incrementalism is boring. I know electoralism is boring. I know it's easier to get on here and become a cult of personality and attract, 300,000 fucking 14-year-olds to give you $5 at a time to start the fucking revolution. But that's probably not actually going to get our politics going anywhere. So I would prefer bipartisanship, electoralism, incrementalism, and the rest. Yield.
Next is going to be Hutch.
Well, to me, I think like preference is sort of like a moot point. Incrementalism is sort of a political reality. And when it comes to certain topics, like On HR1, I think I favor eliminating the filibuster because I think it's really important to protect the process by which Americans can vote in this country. And I think that's a really pressing issue. And if we don't address that, we could go down a really dark path where, that really dark 1/3 of the country can dictate the rest of the 10 years. And so I think certain issues warrant throwing bipartisanship to the wayside. And then for the rest of it, I think it's just sort of inevitable, however unsexy that may be. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Next, we're going to Cat Girl.
Sure. Yeah. Could we get back to me just because I got the questions late, so I still have to think a little bit on this one.
Sure, you have 9 lives. Throw it over to the Denims.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't really know if there's a lot I can add here. I don't disagree with basically anything Hutch here said. I'm more curious on what, like Nacho and Sprouticus is going to say on this, since differing opinions.
Okay, Layman.
Yeah, sure. So I am very, very pro bipartisanship, and I guess the definition that I'm going to go off of is just the generic fucking Google definition. So from what I understand, bipartisanship is basically just aiming towards having different political parties and different political factions sort of cooperate whenever they can, even though they might otherwise normally oppose each other. So I think as an ideal, I think that's a good ideal because cooperation will probably lead to very good policy outcomes. And an example that I'm going to give of this is I'm going to give a very, very quick and very, very brief history of how Canada got universal healthcare in this country. So basically, after the Great Depression, there was a huge call from the people to have some kind of social welfare. So the Prime Minister, Liberal Party Prime Minister, I always fucking forget his full name, William Lyon Mackenzie King, or Lyle Mackenzie King, whatever the fuck his name is, goddamn. He established a welfare state in Canada, and he basically gave mothers paid leave to look after their kids, and he established employment insurance in Canada. So welfare was getting popular, and at the same time in Saskatchewan, there was a sort of Dem Soc Dem party. They were called the CCF. They were led by this guy named Tommy Douglas. Think Bernie Sanders, but a little more moderate and a Catholic eugenicist. A little bit of a side note there, but anyway, he basically enacted this universal healthcare program in Saskatchewan, and it was fucking based and everybody liked it. So you had this lefty who enacted this policy, and then federally, there was basically bipartisan agreement that this was a good program. So you basically had this guy named Paul Martin who was pushing for it a lot, a liberal, centrist, center-left guy named John Diefenbacher who was really, really in on that shit, and there was a guy named Emmett Hall. He was the Minister of Justice at the time. He was a conservative, and he was a big proponent of implementing this federally. And then by the 1960s, the Liberal Party leader Lester Pearson enacted our first universal healthcare program. So you had conservatives basically arguing that this policy was good within their own party, within their own motivated reasoning. You had liberals doing this within their own party, and then you had the Soc Dems already agreed with it, obviously. So so you had this. The experiment was a single payer. There was no private hospitals and shit in Saskatchewan. He got rid of all that shit. Just fucking public hospitals in Saskatchewan. And the compromise was basically we are going to have universal healthcare. We are going to have public hospitals and all of that shit. And then they just gave people the right to build private hospitals if they wanted to give them that option if they wanted to pay more. And then I think by the end of the 1980s, we had abolished private hospitals federally from Pierre Trudeau, who was he self-identified as a radical centrist. So all across party lines, it seems like when you're able to just make a policy appeal to people's motivated reasoning, you can all cooperate and you can come together and get this policy enacted. So by the time this was an idea first planted in Canada to its genesis federally, you actually had this complete and utter bipartisan support from it within the span of 20 years instead of this endless fucking war in America. So it would be nuts. Now, the reason why this isn't happening in America, I don't actually know the answer to that. But I'm hoping to figure that out today because it feels like there's a lot of people who just don't really have that ideal in mind in America. And I think that they should, and it would be a much better country as a consequence of it. So.
Okay, I'm looking over to Denims now. Oh wait, I already said Denims. I'm sorry. We're going
Just
over
gonna
to.
make me go twice, okay?
Yeah, why not? Josie Rose.
Okay, so I'm going to, I guess, maybe be somebody who says that bipartisanship is a myth and it's nothing more than a political talking point that politicians say is like, I can reach across the aisle. I'm bipartisan. It's one of those words that, Layman, I wish it was as simple as two parties agreeing on two things. But when it comes to equality, as far as like the Equality Act, there is no compromise. There is no ability to say some people get rights and some people don't get rights. And the issue is when we start talking about bipartisanship when it comes to equality, it's always, let's not get the transes rights. Let's give everybody else rights, but let's keep the trans people out of this pool. Okay, is that cool? Right? That's the type of bipartisanship that the Republicans are looking for in a lot of ways. And when we do try to come to the table, it becomes a negotiation of what they want. Now, I hate to say it, but the United States is beyond the pale when it comes to being able to actually work on policy together when it comes to Republican and Democrat. You can look at that with the COVID relief, how there was supposedly a bipartisan effort, and there was just one side trying to hack and slash the ability of the Americans to be able to sustain the pandemic. And that's what bipartisanship has become. If you are a Democrat and you say you're bipartisan, that means you're able to bend down for the Republicans' ridiculous request. And if a Republican says they're bipartisan, that means that they're going to believe that they need to make the Democrats submit and work for them. So the problem is, definitionally, I wish it was just opposing parties deciding on things. But bipartisanship is not a value. It should never be a value on why we elect anybody, because it doesn't mean anything. That's why politicians use it as empty speak. I'm bipartisan. I'm going to reach across the aisle. It means nothing more than the paper that it's printed on. And that's my opinion on bipartisanship.
Okay, now going over to Sprouticus.
Should we be bipartisan? Yes, we should be bipartisan. There's a lot of issues we should agree on, and we just don't. Can we? That's a much different question, and my argument is going to be no. The left can't even agree with the left, and the right can't even agree with the right. As we just saw, Josie went on like a 2-minute monologue about how Republicans are bad, and Republicans are the only bad faith actor in bipartisanship. The Democrats don't have any bad faith actors in bipartisanship. That was her 2-minute monologue. And I'm gonna say, yeah, there's some things we should be bipartisan about. And there's some things that I'm going to yield no ground on. Such as abortion. I'm going to yield no ground on my stance on abortion. No matter what the Democrats try to offer me, I'm going to yield no ground. And that's just where it stands. So I feel like Democrats have their own portions of this too, where it's we can't deal with Republicans on this, we can't deal with Republicans on this, and they're going to yield no ground. And I feel like if we're going to talk about the middles part, where Republicans and Democrats don't say we're going to yield no ground, then yes, I feel like we should and can be bipartisan. But if you're talking about bipartisan and abortion, or bipartisan and UBI or something like that, just pulling a random one out of my head. So sorry if it's a bad example there. But then I don't feel like we can be bipartisan in those, even though maybe we should be.
Okay. Now we're gonna throw it over to American Nacho.
Yeah. Should we be and can we be? Yeah, that's two different questions. Should we be? Yeah, but can we be? I don't even know right now. Like, I've lost so much faith in like the Republican Party. Just in the past like 6 months, especially. I was hoping that they would probably like kick Trump to the side like after the election, and that maybe they would kick some of these other actors to the side, and that we would take that same like those people who are newer voters and that new energy to the base and kind of like take it in a positive direction, and they haven't. And as a result, like, I'm just like, fuck the general party. I have to work with Republicans locally, and we get along well. I mean, it's not like I agree with everything, but they get a lot of shit done here. That's a really good thing. Like, similarly to like what CounterPoints is talking about, there's other things that I've been involved with here that have gone really well. Like, we had local like a lot of like Black Lives Matter protests and stuff like that that went really well, and they got it organized, and they get involved with like churches, and they gave out a bunch of clothes and food, and like it was a really positive thing, and they helped push legislation to get like to start investigating like our police locally and on the county level. And as a result, like there were a lot of sheriffs that were charged, and former sheriffs, current and former officers that were charged with like embezzling money or like misuse of public funds, et cetera, et cetera. And so like they're getting things done here locally. And even though there's like a few Trumpers that I still fucking hate because the state is hella red, like they get shit done locally. So I would say like everyone should probably be focusing on their local level politics first. And that's where you should probably try to be like giving and exceeding ground. Like my view of bipartisan is not necessarily the same as Josie's. Like I think that there are things that the Republicans inherently are going to have to give up, and we can't afford to necessarily be so conservative on anymore. Like yes, I'm a fiscal like conservative, I guess I would call myself that maybe, but like I also understand that like we're moving forward into the future, like with technology, like things like UBI are gonna have to be looked over. Things like addressing like our healthcare are going to have to be looked at, and there is going to have to be ground conceded. And you could maybe argue that more of it might have to be on the Republican side, but I think there are things that are just as important to consider that Democrats concede on as well. And so moving forward, I hope that the Republicans ditch Trump so that they can be taken seriously, but I hope that the Democrats and the general left stop like demonizing everyone who considers himself right, or everyone who is associated or affiliated with Republicans as just like the scum of the earth. You know what I mean? It is unfortunate that the 55% are in support of Trump, but I'm hoping that the more that he is off, I mean, we've seen that this has changed since he's been basically offline. At first, this was like 77% of the base was in support of Trump, and now it's down to like 55%. I hope that the longer he's like, that he becomes more irrelevant and that people kind of forget about him. So I don't know. I hope that we can be bipartisan moving forward, and I think, yes, we should be.
Okay. Now we are basically in an open dialogue.
Okay. I have a question quickly, American Nacho, real quick. Do you believe that every issue can have bipartisanship? So is there a way to have a bipartisan compromise on the Equality Act that basically has nothing more than giving people rights fundamentally?
Yeah, no, on some things I don't really know. Like something like that, I would have to look at the whole thing. I don't really know what the bipartisan I don't even know what like being bipartisan on something like that would even look like. That's like
Exactly.
like the freedom of the slaves. Like yeah, obviously, like there's some things that just can't be like bipartisan.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
I guess
quick
you should
follow
argue
up.
should be bipartisan because both should just agree.
So the next question I asked then is, you said that the Republicans might have to give up more ground. So what is something that Democrats should be compromising on?
Guns.
Yeah,
but the thing is, we're not really. No, I mean we're losing the gunfight. We're not winning any gunfight.
Josie's saying that you're losing the gunfight.
Probably should be more concerned about like government spending and stuff. It seems it does optically it does seem that like Democrats are more willing to like just spend any amount of money to like address problems or to try to fix problems.
But the Republicans do the same with the military.
Sure, but
so the military
you just
spends the same way.
You just asked me something like, what's one thing that like could maybe have to be conceded ground on from the Democrats?
I think budgets, yes. Budgets are the only thing that bipartisanship kind of exists in. But go ahead, Layman. I took your spot.
Worries. That's fine. So I just wanted to address something that you kind of said in your intro, Josie, where you said something like bipartisanship doesn't actually mean bipartisanship to some people who say bipartisanship is like a signal for something, I guess, a little more malicious. I don't really think that'd be an argument against it. That would be an argument more so, I guess, for like utilizing something in a harmful way, because it sounds like they're not trying to be bipartisan. And I would also say that when I was talking about bipartisanship, I was talking about it as an ideal. So if it makes sense to do so, and if you are capable of doing so, then you should do it.
So,
It's a
Layman, I was
methodology to me.
actually, I was doing the same thing. I said, as bipartisanship as a value to weigh if something is good or bad, bipartisanship as a value is also worthless. So I was also attacking the value and the
Okay.
ideology of so
I wouldn't
yeah,
say
that's
it's an
my argument.
ideology. Yeah, sure. I wouldn't say it's an
But
ideology.
it's a value.
I'd say it. Well, kind of, yeah. Like it's an ideal, I would say. It's like a methodology. That's how I would describe it. So when it comes to things like human rights and stuff like that, if you can't compromise on something like that, then you have to try to basically win over the other side and make it appeal to their motivated reasoning as best you can. So I would say that compromise and bipartisanship aren't necessarily the same thing. They just sort of correlate with each other. And you should do it when necessary, and you should do it when you can, because a incremental, better world moving forward as a consequence of a compromise is better than the world that presently exists. So, yeah,
how does everybody on the panel feel about the Biden administration's concept of bipartisanship? Because they've tried to reframe it. They've tried to reframe it in a sense of moving it away from just strictly applying that term to what goes on in DC and applying it to more broadly what goes on in the electorate. So the American Rescue Program, for example, was supported by the American people by incredible margins. It was like 70+% of the country approved of this rescue package, and yet not a single Republican voted for it in either the House or the Senate. I'm just curious to see what everybody else thinks about that.
I agree with this, Hutch. This is so my favorite Canadian Prime Minister actually went into his sort of shtick with that sort of method in mind. His name was Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and he was basically, his goal was basically, he was like known as like a no compromise fucking dude. But what he was trying to do was he was trying to make policies and ideas appeal to the electorate as best as he could, and appeal to the motivated reasoning of every single political ideology, like popular, like Overton window political ideologies, temperaments as best as he could. And he wound up getting a lot of shit passed. He wound up becoming what most Canadians typically consider like the most consequential prime minister in Canadian history. He established the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, protected classes, patriated the Constitution, freedom of speech became a thing. He fundamentally like changed the culture around immigration. He basically framed immigration in a civic nationalist worldview where basically like as a consequence of that, like, we're like the most immigrant friendly country in the fucking world now. But that doesn't mean that we have like open immigration either. So he had these little left wing, right wing sort of sympathies that he sort of combined into these policies that appealed to everybody, regardless of whatever the fuck anybody in the House of Commons thought at the time. He was like, fuck you guys. This is for the people, left, right, center, whatever the fuck you are. I like that. And Biden seems like he's trying to do something like that. So I support that. I think that's fucking based. Fuck yeah. Biden's awesome.
Here's the thing though. And Josie went off about how the Democrats aren't bad faith actors in bipartisanship.
I did say they were.
Republicans. Oh, you did say they were?
I did. I said that when Democrats say bipartisan, that means that they're going to negotiate with Republicans to undercut their positions. And when Republicans say they're bipartisan, that means they're going to stick their heels in the sand and try to say that the reason they can't be bipartisan is the Democrats.
Okay,
so they're both bad faith.
Okay, I will cede. I will cede that argument now that I've heard that. I must have missed that, and I apologize for missing that. But the Democrats did, and you've seen this recently. Is Biden pretty much had a smear against Joe Manchin because Joe Manchin is working with Republicans on certain topics, such as the filibuster. And so Joe Biden just recently publicly stated, he's like, even though they vote with my Republican friends more often than not, and it was obvious slide at Joe Manchin, and I forget who the other Democratic,
Sinema.
Oh, I'm
Sinema.
sorry. Yeah, Sinema.
Sinema.
So he took slights at those. So the question being, can we do this? And I think we can't, because my yield no ground may be much different than Josie's yield no ground, or my yield no ground, for a better example, could be much different than CounterPoints yield no ground. Even though we're both on the right, we may have different yield no grounds. And so the issue would be to having both parties decide what is yield no ground and what is not yield no ground. And with all this inner fighting inside both parties, I think it's going to be near impossible to have the parties actually come together and decide what is and what isn't yield no ground. So
I agree with Sprouticus on that yield no ground point. Actually, not the rest of it necessarily, but the yield no ground stuff where you can basically parcel out which policies are like where there is like such a fundamental moral disagreement that the majority of people within the country, within these sorts of, I'm going to use the word again, within their frame, their motivated reasoning, will not agree on, and you cannot make appeal to that. And I guess like maybe abortion in the short term in the United States might be one of those things. It seems like the Roe v. Wade thing's already been passed though, so I don't really have much to say about that. But you could figure out like which policies do like most Republican support, like Republican voters, like electorate, and then see if there's some kind of overlap between them and the Democrats, and then push for those policies as hard as you can. Make rhetoric that appeals to people who are more progressive and who are more conservative, maybe who are more reasonably so. I mean, I guess I'm operating off of a different sort of like cultural inclination towards this because I don't live in the United States and it's a little different in Canada. We're all fucking grill pilled in Canada. But, I think that would be just a good direction to head in. So I guess I agree with Sprouticus on that point.
Wait,
Okay,
are you saying? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No.
Okay, I just would quickly want to throw it over to Kat because I haven't thrown it over to Kat in a while.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so as for like bipartisanship, it just really seems like it's really hard because in the past I feel like uh Democrats have quite often tried to go too much for the whole bipartisan approach, not necessarily people that are a part of Congress, but at least within like executive branch, consistently making concessions. And it just honestly, I feel leads to just too much not being able to get done. You spend so much time in the room just sitting there and trying to work out the nuance of like, okay, how much do we need to compromise that you end up at the end of the day having something that is nothing close to what you actually advocated for in the first place. So I think bipartisanship sounds really cute. I think it's a really nice meme. But I just don't really see the feasibility in it because it just doesn't really seem like anything good has come out of it historically.
Ooh.
Okay, next would be
So-
Connor and then Denims.
God damn, Katarana. Holy shit. That's fucking democracy, baby. Fucking watered down bullshit fucking bills that nobody fucking likes. That's democracy. Like fucking holy shit. Like my God. Like I'm pretty sure like one of the negotiative tactics in business is like a deal in which nobody is happy. And that's supposed to be viewed as a good deal because like people are basically getting fucking concessions that they don't want to quite give, but then the other people are giving concessions that they don't want to quite give. So no, that's politics, that's incrementalism, that's democracy. If you don't believe in like fucking some level of bipartisanship or fucking watered down bills getting through, you just don't believe in democracy, basically. So that's weird. And then what Layman has said like 4 or 5 times that I think is absolutely correct, and I wish our buddy Drew Welty was here to help explain it psychologically, is the concept of motivated reasoning. There's actually things that are incredibly popular with right-wing peoples, but they're like moral ideological values.
Moral intuition.
He actually knows like Drew knows like 5 of them off the top of his head for conservatives, and he knows like 5 of them off the top of his head for liberals and progressives. And if you use liberal or progressive policies and you appeal to these motivated reasonings, it's like order stability, I think, is one of the ones that he was talking about. Layman, can you give me like 5?
Yeah, I can tell you what they are. Just he's deriving this theory from Jonathan Haidt, and Jonathan Haidt is basically like a social psychologist who sort of initially pioneered like the psychological study of different temperaments between progressives and conservative, or liberals and conservative, whatever colloquialism you want to give the left-right distinction, whatever. He basically like pioneered this, and he came up with this sort of theory, and it's like kind of I usually don't rely on him when I make these kinds of arguments solely, but he basically came up with these this theory called moral foundations theory. And so there are 5 moral foundations to him, and the first one is harm/care, the second one is fairness and reciprocity, the third one is in-group loyalty, the fourth one is authority and respect, and the fifth one is purity and sanctity. So more so what happens in a lot of like empirical studies that he's done is people who are more progressive, you could say, are more inclined to caring about like harm and care and fairness and reciprocity, typically amongst different groups, and they de-emphasize the in-group loyalty, the authority and respect, and the purity and sanctity. And then people who are conservative sort of equally like value all five of those. And then the further right you go, the more you sort of de-emphasize harm, care, fairness, and reciprocity, and emphasize in-group loyalty, authority, respect, and purity and sanctity.
And so
That's
just
what Drew usually talks about.
So just to give you guys some fuel to your fire, basically what I mean by that is when you talk about like stability or order or hierarchy or authority or anything like that, these are all going to appeal to conservatives. And I live in Florida. It's one of the most Darwinian states in the fucking country, but even we pay for antipsychotic medication for the homeless and the poor. The reason why we do that is because we actually end up saving oodles of fucking cash by providing free medication. We basically prevent people from getting incarcerated, and we prevent people from going to the emergency room. So as a result, you basically have a social progressive policy that appeals to fiscal conservatives and appeals to social conservatives, because you're creating a more ordered society, you're saving money, you're taking care of people, and there's like a whole host of ways that you can basically package policies in order to get them more acceptable on the right wing. And I don't really see that thought of at all in left-wing circles. I basically, no offense to anybody here, but oftentimes in left-wing circles, it's like, hey, you guys believe in capitalism and guns, and you think jihadism is a fucking problem. You're a Nazi, xenophobic, transphobic, homophobic.
That's not
piece of
true.
shit, and you should die.
forgot racist. You forgot racist.
Oh, I forgot racist. Yeah.
That's not actually. Tell me one of those people who say that's in political power right now.
Yeah, that sounds like some terminally online shit.
Yeah.
We're all terminally online.
No,
What the
we're
fuck are we
not.
talking
I
about
work.
here?
I am not terminally online. Thank you
You're
very much.
here with us, Josie. Do not escape. You are with us,
all-
Josie. You
I
are with
am.
us.
After a
Did you say-
after a 10-hour workday?
Did you say Hosey?
Yeah.
Okay. I was excited. Okay. I want to be
Jose.
the black hole that sucks Josie
no.
down with me.
Yeah, don't say that
Okay.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Jesus.
feel like
Wait,
the overwhelming
wait. Hold
majority
on.
of
So
people
somebody
out there-
correct me real quick. What's the correct pronunciation?
Josie.
Okay. All right. So
Yes, thank
I want to
you.
sec Josie into the black hole that is twitter.com.
Okay.
Can we-
Can I just? Sorry, Hutch, you go.
Well,
Not
I
gonna
wanted to give it
happen.
to Denims first because Denims tried to talk
Okay.
earlier, and I stopped them, and then I can go over to Hutch.
I don't remember what I was going to say earlier, so I got enamored by what everyone was saying, and I completely
Like a
forgot.
goldfish, over to Hutch.
Yep. mhm.
So I think a big reason why we're having this conversation to begin with is because of senators like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. Because if we had a couple different senators in those states, there wouldn't be a need for this discussion. But God damn it, Denims! Now I'm kind of falling down the same trap you are. Will.
Blame this on me.
Suck it.
Go.
Disordered
Wait, wait,
leftists
no,
can't
hold
fucking
on,
keep
wait,
their
wait,
thoughts
wait,
straight.
wait.
They're too high on their marijuanas and their gay sex.
The point
Those
that I was
gosh darn leftists.
the point that I was trying to make was that like it's oftentimes
So true.
within the discourse about the Democratic Party, it's framed as though we're making these concessions to Republicans. That's not really what's going on. There were no concessions made to Republicans for the American Rescue Plan. The only concessions that were made were to Senator Joe Manchin. And so if you want to solve this problem of not needing bipartisanship, the goal should be to elect more Democrats in the Senate and the House. It just seems so clear to me. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but like we have to grapple within elements and forces in our own party that are holding back like the broader agenda. You have to deal with them. That doesn't mean that you're bargaining with the Republicans. It means you're bargaining with the Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema.
Can I?
And you can make them irrelevant by
Yeah.
picking up more Senate seats, like
Can-
2 or 3
those
more
are
Senate
really-
seats. Joe Manchin has lost not all of his power, but 90% of his power. If you just spread that power out just a little bit more.
Well, can I also point this out, this power dynamic really quickly? Conservatives don't want to fucking change anything. So there's not going to be anything to concede to them on because they don't want to change anything. Progressives want to progress shit. And it's a question of how far we're going to progress. I understand it's frustrating to deal with a bunch of chud dickholes who never want to fucking change anything anyways, but that's part of the political dynamic is conservatives want to conserve, progressives want to progress, and the question is how far do we get this time and on what issues?
And I love how Hutch. I just want to base. I love how Hutch is. Hutch comes in saying, if you guys don't think that we can get bipartisanship, then just elect more Democrats. So I'm gonna be over here, guys. If you guys don't think that we can get bipartisanship, then just elect more Republicans. Just make sure Republicans stay in power the entire time. Like,
Yeah,
so,
I don't think that's
of course. The same thing applies to your side.
So,
I'm
I'm just saying that you elect more of that party. Would have been a much less biased take. But what I am going to say is that I don't think bipartisanship. I think bipartisanship works when it's needed. When people actually decide to yield ground on a topic, I feel like it works. With that being said, the Senate also has minority rights, which part of the minority rights is also a large heated topic on Twitch and Twitter and all the all the terminally online stuff is the filibuster, which Joe Manchin and Semina are fighting to protect because they were part of both in the minority. And so if I feel like that forces, and I feel like the filibuster forces Senate to be bipartisan. And if you're not to be bipartisan, then you're not going to get the 60 votes you need to pass.
Can I just ask you, like, I know you said a moment ago or maybe a couple hours ago, but like national polls don't matter. And to a certain extent, I agree. We work in an electoral system and it's more complicated than that. However, I just want to ask you, Sprouticus,
Okay.
do you think in a country where 70% of the people that approve of that policy, do you think that a policy should advance if 70% approve? Generally speaking,
it doesn't matter because elections have consequences, and if you're not going to let me finish, because someone who's voting, someone who's saying something in a poll may not ever go to vote. So elections have consequences. So if you're going to elect a congressman and the congressman that you elected doesn't do what you want them to do, then by all means vote them out. Make sure they never get their seat again because they didn't do what you voted them in to do. But elections do have consequences.
So in a democracy, I just want to pin you down on this. In a democracy, if we live in a
democracy,
motherfucker,
What?
A constitutional
republic.
Okay, listen. A constitutional republic is a form of democracy. I don't know how I need to explain.
Representative democracy.
It is a form of democracy. There's no such thing as a direct democracy. There's no country that exists in the entire world that works with a direct democracy where the people are voting on each individual bill. We elect representatives to represent us in a parliament or a Congress. That is a republic. That is a democracy. We do live in a democracy. So if we live in a democratic country and 70%, I'm talking about like slightly more than 2 out of 3 people who live in the country approve of some kind of policy, do you not think that policy should push forward? I'm going to assume the answer is yes. I probably shouldn't, because you say we don't live in a democracy.
We live. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying more
you
than
asked the question. You asked the question. I was ready to answer.
But you answered with some bullshit like we don't live in a democracy. Like what the do you seriously think that we don't live in a democracy?
Misconception. We live in a constitutional republic.
What is the definition of a democracy?
So there's many different definitions of democracy, and to nail it down to that, to expect me to have that offhand, but okay.
We're
kind of derailing it a little bit.
You derailed his semantics.
I'm sorry.
Come on, let Hutch go off. I really see his fucking blood pressure up.
I want to see. No, wait. I will. No. I'll allow it. Continue. What's a democracy?
Okay. All right.
So, can we Google it? Right. So democracy versus republic. Democracy is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. A republic, the definition of that is, if I can stop mistyping here, a form of government in which power is held by the people and their elected representatives. A constitutional republic is a form of democracy. We need to stop this bullshit. And I encourage you to talk to your right-wing friends and stop telling them to tell them to stop saying that we don't live in a democracy. We do. This is a form of democracy.
Can I
Hold on. I'm gonna tell my right wing friends to say it even more, just so I can see the fucking veins throb in your fucking head. Because normally I'm the person who's fucking triggered as shit on a fucking panel.
When most people say democracy,
wait, not what I hear what Sprouticus says.
What? I lost all audio from you, Dylan.
Sprouticus, talk.
Okay. When most people say democracy, they mean direct democracy. And yes, when most people say democracy, they mean a direct democracy.
No, they don't.
We live
This is
in a
For everyone listening to this live stream,
Let me hear him finish. Let me hear him finish.
So either way, we live in a constitutional republic, and that constitution provides a representative democracy, not a direct democracy. So with that being said, like I said before, if you elect a representative and they don't represent you, then vote them out. Vote the representative that is going to represent what you want. They're going to worry about their constituents voting them in or voting them out. That is what they're worried about. So if you have a congressman or a senator in your locality that is not representing you well, maybe the House or the Senate, then vote them out. If you think the president is not representing you well, then vote him out. Vote him, her out. Okay, so it doesn't matter. So we live in a representative democracy. The elections have consequences, and I'll leave it at that.
What did George W. Bush say we were providing to the people of Iraq in 2004? Did he say we were providing republicanism?
We should have.
No, serious. That's a serious question. What did
he
say?
I don't know. I don't have that quote offhand like you do, Hutch. Tell me, what did George W. Bush say?
He said we were spreading democracy to the Middle East, implying that we are a fucking democratic country.
We did it in Vietnam too.
Oh fuck.
We did it in America. We just have so much of it. We never did everyone
this
else.
is okay, so this is getting circular because I wanted to get my little fucking 2 cents here. Like, there seems to be like a group of Democrats and Republicans within each side that kind of like want to see the other side fail, and I think it's mostly because that's what they're getting paid to do. Like, it's what the DNC and RNC respectively like order them to do, like, or else they're not going to, be reelected, and that fucking sucks. Like, many politicians have spoken to this, like right and left. Whether they're ex or current politicians, like, and more recently, like Tulsi Gabbard, when she ran, like she was speaking to this and the frequency and like unwillingness of like mainstream party affiliates to like approach a bill as or a policy as a human rather than like a team player. And like, I think it's really important. Like you said something like we've never really gotten anything from bipartisan bills. Like we've gotten a shit ton. Like some of like our most like influential like bills have been, bipartisan bills. We had like the No Child Left Behind. We had like Social Security reform. We've had the food stamps. We've had a Man on the Moon. Like we have the Civil Rights Act. Like we've had some really awesome bills that are like
most of those were not bipartisan though. I mean they were just
technically they're bipartisan. Okay, like
I guess. But the thing is, like,
and you
it's
can
not
make
where
the
it
argument
matters.
probably on a number of all these bills. There's like a list a mile long of like bipartisan bills that have been really influential as to like our history as a country. Like my point is to just say like I feel like it's really important that we maintain like a bipartisan like relationship with each other, because when shit hits the fan, when we get another Trump in office, when we get another like tyrannical party or president or governmental body in office, we need to be able to reach out to the other side and be like, hey, like you need to look at what this side is doing too, like, and that just goes to both sides. So like that's really it.
Well, when we talk about getting rid of the filibuster, if we didn't have the filibuster in place during Trump's first term, then the ACA wouldn't be a thing. We would have like millions more people uninsured. So I understand the appeal to trying to attempt some sort of bipartisanship, because otherwise the consequences are going to be dire, depending on which side you talk to and depending on who's in power at the time. So it is complicated. It's not black and white. I don't think it's quite black and white.
Okay, so we're going to go to the list. I'm just going to start with Layman, then Connor, then Josie Rose.
God, what I wanted to say is so fucking old now that I don't even remember what the fuck I was going to say. But I guess like when we were talking about, I guess I'll go back when we were talking about the general conversation about how you make like policies, how you make policies bipartisan. So I make policies feel different people. And Connor alluded to a very, very red conservative state where they had a policy that people consider more progressive, appeal to people who are more conservative. Connor, can you just repeat what that was, just so I can refresh myself?
Yeah, the state of Florida is giving poor people and homeless people antipsychotic medication because from a utilitarian standpoint, it's just viewed as incredibly good, cost-effective, better for the people, better for law enforcement, better for medical personnel.
Yeah. So I guess like if you want more policies like that to get passed, so let's say you're a progressive person and you want to make policies appeal to conservatives. Way back, I linked a study in the chat. I don't know if anyone like looked at it or anything, but it's basically just it's a meta-analysis of 88 different studies that look at like conservative psychology and shit like that. And what I highlighted, I put like a screenshot in there and I highlighted like some of the key, like most statistically significant findings that sort of go into what a conservative, like where a conservative's motive, going back to that word, motivated reasoning is. And so the most statistically significant thing that will lead that correlatively might lead somebody or is likely to lead somebody to conservative voting patterns is death anxiety, perceived system instability, and then sort of like what the study calls dogmatism / intolerance of ambiguity. So these are like the three things that I usually focus on. So intolerance of ambiguity is basically like categories that seem ambiguous and not clear cut. For lack of a better word, trigger the fuck out of conservatives. So if you can make policies circumvent that, that's good. If you can make policies appeal to a sort of faith in your civic institutions, that will sort of ease the system instability element of that. And if you can put forward policies that might existentially put people at ease, and you just laser fucking focus on that, and then ignore any other progressive rhetoric around it. I found it anecdotally successful when I wanted to sell more like right libertarian people on things like sugar taxes, because I can make sugar taxes appeal to a healthier society. Conservatives like less fat people in society. I know that's kind of a whatever, but like shit, like just that's a very, very, rudimentary way to say that. But I think that like, those experiences that I've had where I've been able to sell people on different policies and appeal to that motivated reasoning, it's really, really helped me a lot. And I was just citing that study in the chat earlier to sort of back up my experiences that they're like empirically verifiable. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, we're going to go on to Connor and Josie Rose. Then we're probably going to wrap it up after Kat. Got it.
Yeah. So, and this is where I just want to appeal to the lefties who are listening and all that kind of stuff. Oftentimes what will feel very unreal or inconsequential to you is very real or consequential to me. I remember debating people in 2016, 2017, 2018, in the middle of like the Bataclan massacre and the Calais truck attack and the rise of ISIS and like all that kind of stuff. I basically remember debating mass immigration folks who were saying like, oh, these things are like 1 in a billion. It's a fucking lightning strike. You don't need to be worried about this shit. So while I understand that like, to you, that's the way that you perceive threat, that it's like it's 1 in a million chance, the chances of it not happening and all that kind of stuff. Because I have death anxiety and I'm a conservative and I specialized in violence for a really long time. Basically, to me, it is very real. Whenever I see the aftermath of like terrorism photos, or whenever I see a terrorist attack basically happening, I can see that in my mind's eye because I've seen similar things in my own life. So to me, it's a very triggering event. So for somebody to dismiss my fear or my anxiety or my emotional reaction to something is not the way to get me to appeal to your politics. So to give you a better one, this is actually something that I came up with on my own because lefties are dog shit at coming up with fucking arguments that work for conservatives, is basically that right now we have pretty friendly relations with Japan. We have pretty friendly relations with Germany. I don't think we would give a shit if either one of these countries mass immigrated into the country. However, what happened was we fought a war and we allowed immigration, cultural exchange, economic exchange, and all that kind of stuff to occur. So the Japanese now understand Americans better. Americans now understand Japanese better. Americans understand Germans better. Germans understand Americans better. And because of that cultural, economic, and militaristic interchange, we now understand each other to the point that violence is no longer necessary, and they're just viewed as an ingrained part of our society. If you made a similar argument to that, where you're like, hey, actually, immigration from the Middle East and North Africa long term is going to cause less terrorist attacks because of cultural exposure, cultural exchange, economic exchange, and all that kind of stuff. That's a way better argument than saying stop being a pussy. Terrorist attacks are rare. Okay. So this is where I am inviting people who are in chat, listening, all that kind of stuff to reconceptualize your rhetoric, not your goals. Keep your goals. If you're a fucking progressive and a lefty and a mass immigration person, do whatever the fuck you want. I'm just asking you to reconsider your rhetoric so you can be more effective as a person. And with that, I yield.
Okay.
So it's
okay.
my turn, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to do exactly what CounterPoints did. Since Republicans are such dog shit at creating types of arguments here, the fact that Republicans should change their rhetoric, because the fact that, children that don't even affect their lives or trans people getting medication for their transition doesn't actually affect them. So why don't they just stop being jerks about it and just let people have rights? Maybe Republicans would have a better argumentation ability if they just gave up this point about trying to stop young children from receiving life-saving medicine from suicide. So do you see what I just did there? Do you see what I just did there? Do you like the fact of the matter is you just said, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll listen.
But okay, so what you're trying to say is, because the left doesn't care about me caring about me being blown up. Now all of a sudden, like, the right trying to say that trans people shouldn't get medicine. It's like, do you not see that those are the same coin? And that both of those rhetorical points stem from the same tree? That the fact is, that's what I'm talking about, though, and that's what I'm going to say about my point. And I'm sorry, CounterPoints, and let me finish my point that I wrote down. So it said the fact is bipartisanship is used for everything. Like the fact of the matter is, not everything can be bipartisan. Like I said from the beginning, when you're talking about equality and trying to give people rights, there is no compromise or bipartisan value that says some of these people deserve rights and some of these people don't deserve rights, right? Because there is no value. So what I've been saying from the beginning, and since we're wrapping this up, is my final thesis, I guess, of the whole thing, is the fact that bipartisanship, the reason it's a terrible value, what I said from the beginning, and shouldn't be respected in the political arena as a political talking point for election, is because the times that bipartisanships are used are usually in spaces where people's rights are threatened. Equality, abortion rights, things of that nature, like making sure all children get food, right? Like making sure we give food security to everybody in the country. All of a sudden, bipartisanship becomes this value that Republicans care for to limit people's ability to access the food, limit to people's ability to access some healthcare, limit to people's ability to education. So for me, those things aren't things that should be talked about in a bipartisan way. They should be talked in on both sides in a utilitarian way, which is everybody should try to receive the best type of stuff possible. So there, I'm sorry, I took my space. I'm done.
Yeah, we need to start wrap up.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
For everybody who's raised their hand, would it be okay for their wrap ups to be included? Okay, wonderful. We're gonna start with CounterPoints, and I'm gonna just go to the left and up and finish the show off. CounterPoints.
So should I do my shout out along with my final point? Okay. All right. So Josie, this is what I want to submit to you. Is I think you're right. Utilitarianism is often a pretty strong argument, is that you can achieve like better societal goals overall. But I want to submit this to you basically, is that the reason why I'm bringing up the rhetorical is because I think that a libertarian argument is actually going to be more effective against the right. Against the right when it comes to social liberties and individual liberties. I think the reason why gay rights were won was because it was saying gay people getting married and gay people living their lives as best they can doesn't affect you, shut the fuck up. And there is a strong branch of the right that's very libertarian. So right wingers do not need to become left wingers in order for these policies to be passed. Authoritarians, social authoritarians, need to become social libertarians in order for this to be passed. And that's what I mean by rhetoric. And then I think, as ugly as this is, I'll submit to you to the political dynamic that I brought up earlier. You talk about starving people, people who are committing suicide, people who aren't getting medical access, all that kind of stuff. Conservatives, just through the nature of their political position, don't want to change anything. They want to conserve the status quo, typically because they're benefiting from it. So in order to get somebody go...
Okay,
well,
sorry.
I'll just finish my point because I don't think you're going to disagree with it. Conservatives, because they benefit from the status quo, in order to get them to go out on a limb, you have to give them like a rhetorical or political reason to go out on that limb. That might not be right. It might not be fair. It might not be correct. It might not be moral. It might not be any of that kind of stuff. But that is the political dynamic that we're in. So I'll yield there and then just shout myself out. So my name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named CounterPoints. I consider myself centrist or center right. And basically, I'm a 4-year veteran of the Marine Corps, person other than Grunt, deployed 0708. I'm a 4-year veteran of law enforcement. And I'm a political nerd. I'm reviewing Full Metal Jacket, one of the best war movies ever made. I'm reviewing End of Watch, one of the best law enforcement movies ever made. And I'm reviewing Warhammer cinematic animations because that's the best sci-fi universe ever made. So if any of that stuff interests you, please type in CounterPoints common spelling into your YouTube search bar, or alternatively follow me on Twitter at CounterPoints, ConorPoints, ConorPoints. You guys are all lovely, and it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for coming back, Dylan. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, buddy. Gonna throw it over to Cat Girl.
Cool. Yeah, I think there's just a bit, just a little bit too much compromise expected, and I know perhaps maybe I'm just young and idealistic, but I just feel like there's too much of a requirement to always give just a little bit too much concession, and it just seems like whenever we achieve bipartisanship, it just ends up with two people with like limp dicks in their hand, and no one's happy. So I just don't really think it is possible, at least in our current climate, to strive for something like that. I think especially after the last 4 years that we've had, I think we're all just living on like different mental playing fields and different realities that it just doesn't seem realistic to expect that there would be able to have compromise, especially after we see where there's a lot of juxtaposition in everybody's ideals. So I don't know. Also, the whole idea of I just wanted to refute something, even though I know no one can respond. So I get to yell into the wind. I don't know why there's this idea that like, yeah, like if we can just go ahead and give like better rhetoric for certain things, then everything would be fine because we were able to pass same-sex marriage, everything would be fine. But then, like, why are we, if that's the case, if it's like, let people be free, then why are we having the problems that we are with trans rights? Like, let people be free then. Why are we infringing on this case? And I really just don't see that there's any point in, like, yielding or, like, giving ground because, honestly, yeah, the most marginalized people always get left behind, and we can see how that happens. Because, yeah, now trans people have to go ahead and fight their own fight, and it's not fun. So yeah, I'm Katarina. I am a physicist, and I do physics stuff. I also come on to debate streams because debates are the only things that remind me to take my medication every day, so I can focus on what stupidity is happening here. So tomorrow I will be, talking about the International Space University and whether or not getting a master's from that school is worth it when it is 5 times more expensive than getting a degree from any other place in Europe. So that's fun. And then I'll also be doing an interview for Pride Month because je suis le queer. So, haha, happy Pride, everybody. And yeah, you can find me on all the things by looking up Katarina. If you don't put the the dots on top of the A's on YouTube, you won't find me. And that's what I call good SEO. Thank you.
Wonderful. We're going to throw it over to Hutch.
I just, again, It's like what Sprouticus was saying. Like for the right, for some people on the right, abortion is like a non-negotiable issue. And so no matter how many people approve of people's right to have an abortion, there's still going to be like 25% of the population that says that's non-negotiable. I'm never going to agree with that. You can find similar cases on the left, but that's kind of a quandary. And if we have a 50-50 split in the Senate, and you have senators like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, then you are essentially forced to engage in some kind of bipartisanship. It's just an inevitability. It's not always fun, depending on which side you're in and depending on who's in power, but it is a reality. And I just want to throw one last pitch out there for anybody who's still clinging to that line that America is not a democracy. If America is not a democracy, then democracy doesn't exist in the world. And if you don't think that America is a democracy or should be a democracy, then you're essentially anti-democratic, which I have to question, like, what are you at that point? Are you authoritarian? Are you a fascist? What are you? And I don't want to ascribe labels that don't fit. So if you're not those things, great. But I just need you to explain that you support democracy. That's all I want to throw a pitch out at the end there. Thank you for having me on, Dylan.
Love to have you on, Hutch. Gonna throw it over to Layman.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to respond to, I'm going to give like a quick little response, and then I'm going to give my actual outro. So I think characterizing bipartisan goals and the ones I advocated for and that Connor advocated for are in no sense a fallacy of middle ground sort of compromise thing. It felt like there was a bit of a mischaracterization going on in the conversation as to where we were coming from. We weren't saying to just settle for the middle of every crucial issue possible and never go beyond there. But rather what we were suggesting is to frame your advocacy to address the concerns of as many political alignments as you possibly can that are within a reasonable Overton window. And if someone has what you consider to be bad politics, figuring out their motivated reasoning and appealing to that will increase the likelihood of getting people behind your ideas and having them enacted to positive effect in society, so you can blur this left-wing, right-wing line and just get down to brass tacks and help people overall. So that's what I believe in. And compromise, while it can be helpful, I don't think is essential to the bipartisan ideal. I know that, we all, except for Connor and I, find the whole radical centrism thing a little cringy, a little silly, but I think that militantly advocating for what's right, having a spine, and knowing that if you make this appeal to as many alignments as possible, trying to understand as many of them as possible, and blurring the lines between left and right and making good policies appeal to both of those, very, very broad abstract lines is the best thing that you can do in society. At least I think it is in the Canadian context. I think that's worked historically, and I wish the US would be able to do that, even though Canada is certainly not perfect and certainly has its flaws. So with that being said, I am Layman. If you liked me on this panel, my YouTube channel is in the Twitch chat, as is my Twitter. You're more than welcome to follow me on there if you liked what I had to say. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Dylan. I love your show. Even though it's a little Canadian phobic sometimes, I'm not really a fan of that personally, but otherwise, I think it's really fucking cool to come on here. So thanks, buddy.
Another Canadian snowflake.
Fuck you.
Throwing it over to American Nacho.
They're just sad they have monopoly money.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Based monopoly money.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, like some of the most base policies in our history, some of those influential changes in our government have been bipartisan. In a system like we have that's focuses on, or it's supposed to focus on checks and balances. I think bipartisanship is healthy when it's warranted and when it makes sense. That being said, I think that I can admit, or I can concede, that the Republicans have we have some cleaning to do, so we can make ourselves presentable again, so that that Democrats feel better about working with us. That being said, I hope that if it does make sense, or if it is something that's going to be beneficial or to the economy, to the people, etc., that the Democrats are willing to play nice while we go through these growing pains. Yeah, that's pretty much it on that. And I'm American Nacho. I play video games and I talk politics on Twitch. I'm gonna do another rock concert tonight in celebration of Dylan's coming back to Twitch. Dylan, we love you. thank everybody when I say we love you. We're glad to have you back. And I love all of you beautiful people that are in this panel with us today. I think it was some awesome conversations. You're all awesome. Yeah, so follow me on Twitch. That's it.
Thank you. I'm throwing it over to Sprouticus.
Okay. So, again, should we be bipartisan? Yes. Can we be bipartisan? I don't think so. I feel like we can. Well, I feel like we can be bipartisan in some issues. I feel like we can't be bipartisan in other issues. And since chat is memeing about it so much, I'll bring the phrase back of yielding no ground. I feel like Republicans have certain. I feel like each individual person has things that they will yield no ground on, and Democrats have things that they will yield no ground on. Like, I'm sure Josie will yield no ground on youth getting hormones and or puberty blockers. I'm sure that's something she would yield no ground on. Whereas for someone else that may not be like a case where someone would yield no ground. So it's really hard when you try to figure out what you can yield ground on, what you can't yield ground on. If you guys liked me in this debate, follow me on Twitch at the Sprouticus. I will be having an after party afterwards. This upcoming Wednesday, I'm also hosting a debate called The American Octagon. So make sure you show up for that. And other than that, I will talk to you guys later.
Wonderful. Throwing it over to Josie Rose.
Okay. So there was a lot of things said. So one thing I have to say, there's a couple things. So just a couple hypocrisies that I've noticed throughout this debate. So the June 6th commission was something that was supposed to be a bipartisan thing. Like, there were supposed to be 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats, but yet at the beginning of this debate, a lot Spartacus was saying, no, we don't need that. We don't need that bipartisanship. And there was like, people wanted that, right? And that was something that we could look at. Now, another thing that I have to say is that counterpoints, like, Republicans are not just this conservative party. Like, they literally are taking healthcare rights away from people and not keeping status quo. The fact of the matter is, like, there is, like, the idea that Republicans are just trying to block everything is fiction. They're also regressing things as well, such as rights and values, such as abortion rights in Texas, such as trans rights across the country. There's just so many things that we've turned the clock on that is beyond just not doing anything. So I wanted to make that point as well. And so my final point on this, and then I'll give my little outro, is when somebody is running for office and one of their biggest points are bipartisanship, run the effing other direction, because that means I'm a coward. Because if it's the idea that they are going to stand on bipartisanship before they say I'm going to fight for something. So bipartisanship is just a fancy word for political cowardice, and we should not uphold politicians that say that's their number one value that they hold up. And that is what I was trying to argue throughout this entire debate. So with that, I'll get to my outro. So I'm Josie Rose Caballero, and my Twitch handle is JosieRoseC, as you can see right there. That's how it is. And I do political commentary. I do reaction content. I talk a lot about trans rights because we're under attack. So I'm always trying to give brief updates on things like that, and also dissecting arguments, dissecting conversations, and actually like understanding how we can be better at talking to people in a way that just doesn't explode, but is in a way that gets to the nuance of conversations. And I think that we've had a lot of fun, and we've been doing that. Dylan, I'm so happy you're back. You're just such a fantastic moderator. And I just want to thank you for doing this and having the spoons to make it happen. So if anybody's effing with you, send them my way, because you are awesome, and I want you to keep doing this as much as you can, and I want you to take care of self-care as well as all of us here. So much love, and I hope to see all of you another time soon.
Well, if you're gonna ask, well, Hutch has been giving me the stank eye the whole time. If you want to go rough him up,
Yeah, let's get him.
I'm coming.
Yeah. Now we're gonna end it out with Denims.
Okay, so I think as far as the bipartisanship goes, we have to distinguish between bipartisanship in Congress and that same concept with just regular voters. Like, problems that are not getting solved in like the Senate even though the majority of Republican voters are for whatever motion, is absolutely ridiculous. And I think as far as like not giving into what the other side demands, I think that there are certain things that are important, even if there is a minority of people that upholds this view, right? Like if you were in the minority for a very long time, probably, that like slavery is bad, that doesn't mean that at any point you're like, well, I guess we just got to concede this one. I think that there are ideas that are complicated enough and actually matter enough that you don't concede them for good reason. But I do think that the rhetoric thing is like a great option. It sucks that there is one side, I'm not specifically saying the left or the right or whatever, but it sucks that there has to be the fact that like one side has to convince the other side using rhetoric, instead of just the other side coming to the conclusion that like maybe it's okay for women to have abortions, you know? And like we don't have to explain like using rhetoric. But I understand the ideal or like the goal of rhetoric, which I know Connor and Layman were talking about. Oh yeah, and then my ending. I'm Denims, twitch.tv/Denims. I stream 6 a.m. PDT every day.
Denims, could you tell me a little bit about the positioning of that soundboard behind you?
Listen, you
I
know,
was
I
wondering
think
the same thing, actually.
you know, I think the fact that you see anything, Dylan, is really problematic.
See what?
I think it's very
what?
problematic.
See what?
I don't know. Why don't you tell us?
Well, when we were all over at Denim's place when I was in LA, and everybody's looking at the sound piece except for Denims, and everybody's kind of like scratching their heads, and I think it was Supreme or was me, I forget, and was like, isn't it a little weird that the slots of that board are specifically positioned like a swastika? Which
Oh my God.
is the case. If you look very carefully and you
Oh
see
my
how it's
God.
tilted, it is positioned exactly like a swastika.
You
Which-
should see.
Controversial.
Why did you
It's
see
an
that, Dylan?
Indian peace symbol, okay?
Listen, why did you
No, it's
think
a
that,
fucking
Dylan?
Gotta turn it around. For
You know,
that to be the
Denims, I'm
case.
really sick of the dog whistling. You do it
Wow.
so much. You should probably
Wow.
just stop doing it.
Dude,
It's
this
really
is
True.
crazy.
fucked up,
Look,
dude.
I'll stop doing it once you get a light set up, brother. Okay.
Fuck
How
you.
about
I don't
that?
fucking need lights. I don't fucking need lights to come on here and spout some fucking, drop some
And
fucking
Dylan,
knowledge. You think
you ever
lights
come
are
to
gonna help me
LA?
do that? Fuck no.
If
God
you ever come
damn.
to LA, you better invite me next time. I'm
I
just
will.
saying.
I
Hey,
will.
Denims,
All
why don't you
right,
change
I'm in
your
San
name to
Diego. I'm
something
not
that's not
far.
fucking pants?
Wonderful.
Why don't you do
change it?
that?
Why don't you go get yourself some bitches?
Why don't you?
Oh,
Damn.
Okay,
Okay.
SDL,
Sorry,
calm
I'm
down,
sorry.
calm down.
We're good. We're good.
Okay.
It's not
Thank you
okay.
all.
It's not okay.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. You all have a blessed one. And everybody, next week, we're going to be working with Modern Day Debates on collaborating for a Friday show. The week after that, we're going to have Humanist Report on for a show, and we're working to get also some other big stars for that. And the week after that, it'll be Vosh versus somebody else for the Hippy Dippy Championship. In the month, and then that's going to the next month, we will be doing a fundraiser for mental health with the Serfs, specifically for LGBTQ plus youth. So we have a lot scheduled for Hippy Dippy Championship and fundraisers stuff we're doing. So I hope you all tune in, and thank you all for coming. All my guests, you all have a blessed night.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dylan. Thank you
See you later,
so much,
man.
Thank
Dylan.
you for having us.
And I appreciate you not kicking me out all the fucking time this time, too.
You know what?
That was
I'll
so
kick him,
fucked
dude.
up when
Kick
I
him
was
now.
on here the last time. Jeez.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
You fucker.